Good morning. Today, sorry about that. Good morning. Today is Thursday, October 19th, and this is the time and place for the regularly scheduled Nevada Gaming Commission meeting for the month of October. Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, could you please tell us if our agenda has been posted in accordance with the open meeting law?
Yes, it has.
All right, at this time, I would ask and remind anyone coming to the podium to speak that you speak directly into the microphone and speak clearly as possible, because the meeting is being transcribed electronically and transmitted electronically and being transcribed. So, Madam Secretary, if we could please move to our first agenda item, public comments.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters.
All right, anyone that wishes to address the commission may do so at this time. Matters brought to our attention during public comment cannot be acted upon, but we are happy to hear the comments of the public as well as any comments by my fellow commissioners. Comments by all will be limited to 3 minutes as a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction. If any of my fellow commissioners or myself ask questions of the public, the time needed to address those questions will not be held against those time constraints. If you have any handouts or copies of the comments to provide, please don't approach the dais with them. An enforcement agent will come and grab them from you. And I will first go to Carson City. Is there anyone present in Carson City who wishes to make a public comment? There being none, here in Southern Nevada. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Diamante Asbury, Diamante Asberry. Good morning to the commission. I also see that the control board is over on the side here. This comment's going to be a refresher for you, but first time for the commission. Hi. So I'm here today to talk about what Culinary Union believes is a violation of a federal injunction at Red Rock Casino. In July 2021, the U.S. District Court in Nevada ordered a rare and extraordinary injunction against Station Casino's Red Rock Casino. We will turn in a copy of this 34-page injunction. I will actually be emailing that to the secretary, or you already have it because of last time. Either way, there is a copy available. So the injunction prohibits Red Rock Casino from granting employees benefits to discourage employees from supporting the union, and also threatening employees with loss of benefits, including lower wages or withholding benefits that they otherwise would have received, unspecified reprisals, or other negative consequences if they select the union. In December 2022, Station Casinos informed the Culinary Union of its new enhanced benefits program, and we agreed that Station Casinos could and should give these enhanced benefits to all workers we represent. But in January of this year, Station Casinos rolled out those new benefits to non-union workers, and they didn't provide them to unionized workers at Red Rock and the other properties. It announced that workers represented by the union are not eligible because of the company's legal obligation to bargain over the benefits. But we already told Station Casinos that it could give these benefits to represented workers without objection from us. It could have done so months ago, and it continues to deny these enhanced benefits. Meanwhile, Station Casinos congratulated its slot technicians at Sunset Station after the company withdrew recognition from their union in May. When it did so, it announced that the slot technicians now get the enhanced benefits because Station no longer has to bargain with the union. It's clear to us that Station Casinos is using these benefits to undermine employees' support for a union once again. The injunction currently in place at Red Rock Casino extends not only to Red Rock, but to the entities and corporate officials who are in privity to it or responsible for its actions. If we're right that Station Casinos is using benefits to discriminate against unionization, then the federal court could find Red Rock Casino and those responsible for their actions in contempt of the National Labor Relations Board if it were to bring such a petition. We'll keep you all updated on developments on this matter.
Hi, everyone. Okay. I'm going to, and I don't speak English, okay? I'm going to say in Spanish.
Your name first?
Yeah,
Excuse
okay.
me, can you
My
give us
name
your
is Jose Raimundo Garcia.
Thank you.
Okay. Trabajo en Burger Station. Tengo 8 años. Soy cocinero. El motivo del cual deseo tener unión es por mis mejores beneficios como pensión, aseguranza culinaria y por el cual no se respeta en el área de trabajo. Descanso, incluso cambios de trabajo, de descanso, incluso a los beneficios no son parejos. La compañía que todos tenemos que ganar igual. Okay.
So my name is Jose Raimundo Garcia. I've worked at Boulder Station for 8 years and I'm a cook. The reason why I want to have a union is to have the best benefits such as pension and culinary insurance, and because nothing is respected in our work area such as the schedule and the days off. Even the benefits are not equal in the company and we should all earn benefits equally. Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Does anyone else wish to make public comment? Please step forward.
Good morning. My name is Seth Shore. I'm the CEO of Fifth Street Gaming, chairman of the Downtown Grand Hotel and Casino. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. I did want to make a public comment on esports betting, as I know that's a topic we're going to be discussing today. I've been in front of this commission and the board multiple times since 2015, long enough that I didn't have to wear reading glasses when I first stood up here. This is a topic that I think is very important for our industry. I can give you a lot of reasons why esports betting has not gained the traction or the handle that many in our industry hoped for over the past 8 years. But I can summarize it with this thesis that sports betting is a very crowded and complicated and competitive space. Even the biggest companies, much larger than mine, have limited resources, have lots to focus on, have very long priority lists. And while I think many, if not all, would agree that esports is important, if there's a lot of friction in terms of integrating it into their strategy, it's not going to do it. There's other things to focus on. While I appreciate that the board and commission has been very open-minded, in my opinion, since 2015 and has had different paths for a sportsbook operator to offer esports, it's been a very cumbersome and clunky process and one that is full of friction. I read an article today that I'd love to just read 2 quick paragraphs as the author, Cody Luongo, who's a journalist for the Esports Insider. I think he summed it up very, very well. The opportunity in esports betting is much greater than esports betting itself. It's an opportunity to engage an untapped demographic of bettors, differentiate product offerings, and future-proof businesses by gaining street cred with the next generation of consumers. Viewing esports as purely a percentage of the overall sports betting industry and nothing else isn't taking into account the bigger picture. It's worth noting that certain markets are more ripe for esports than others, which is an important piece to get right. But as regulation evolves in the US and elsewhere, the opportunity within this category will expand with it. The opportunity will expand with the regulation. Without the regulation, esports betting is dead in the water. Thank you very much.
Good morning. If you could state your name for the record.
My name is Naya Grissom with the Culinary Union. Good morning, everyone. I am here to talk about Caesars and Paris Casino. A gaming license holder like Paris Casino is a landlord with third-party tenants. Paris Casino, as a landlord and gaming license holder, is required by Nevada law to ensure third-party tenants follow rules, regulations, and laws. Workers in third-party restaurants need the landlord to hold restaurant tenants accountable. Casino licensees are responsible for the conduct of their tenants and accountability to adhere to rules, regulations, and laws according to NRS 463.0129 and GBC 5.010. This includes misconduct that falls under the enforcement of the Gaming Control Board. Example 1, water on the floor inside of a kitchen area. On August 16th of 23, a video shows multiple workers standing in water as well as on cardboard in the kitchen area at Alexa's Kitchen and Bar. Alexa's is a restaurant owned by JRS Hospitality. While workers were cleaning up, meal prep continued in the area and employees were active in the area where the water was. Example 2, a fire. On May 10th of 2023, the fire department was called inside Paris due to a fire in the same restaurant, Alexa's Kitchen and Bar. Caesars is responsible as the landlord to make sure that Alexa's follows OSHA standards and keeps all individuals on the property safe. Example 3, violence towards customers and employees. On December of 2021, an employee was stabbed at Paris near Mon Ami Gabi, a lettuce and attain you restaurant. The incident from the police department states, the man followed the victim to the bathroom and stabbed one of the bathroom doors, then told the victim to get on his knees. The suspect then swung the knife at the victim and the victim got cut right above their left eyebrow. Before this attack, the male had followed a female employee into Paris and spent time in the kitchen. The person was able to enter Caesar's property by raising his hand when seeing a security officer, and he simulated scanning his badge. On July 4th of 2022, according to a police report, an individual approached customers sitting on the stairs outside of the restaurant Mon Ami Gabi and spit on them. Then the suspect picked up a butter knife off of the table and stated, "I'm going to kill you," and then charged at the victims. Public confidence and trust are key to the success of gaming establishments. Employees, customers, and all of us in Las Vegas need to be able to trust Caesars Entertainment and Paris Casino as the landlord for restaurant tenants to ensure safe conditions at all of their properties. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next person, step forward, please.
Hello, I'm Maddie. Woo! I've never done this before. I'm here to, my gaming license was suspended. Is this when I get up and talk?
No,
Okay, well.
you'll have a special agenda item and you will have an individual attention to your item. So I'll call it and then that'll be the time. Okay? And you don't have a 3-minute limitation. Okay? Anybody else? All right, that concludes our public, and that will close our public comment section. Madam Secretary, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the prior month's disposition.
Pursuant to NRS 241.035, this item is the consideration of the approval of the Nevada Gaming Commission disposition for September 2020.
All right, each of us has had the opportunity to review the disposition. It's my understanding that our analyst and I believe our AG has gone through the prior month's disposition because of the significant detail contained therein. And so I don't believe there's any problems with it, but if anybody has any issues or questions about the prior month's disposition, otherwise it would be time for a motion. Meaning that it was very detailed, but consistent with what occurred at the meeting.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion and with appreciation to the complexity of the various items, but to approve the September disposition.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. Thank you. Madam Secretary, could you please read in the non-restricted consent item number 5?
Your item on the non-restricted consent agenda this morning is item 5, and the recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval.
All right. Are there any questions or comments on this item? There being none, do any of my colleagues have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move for approval of consent item non-restricted number 5 is read into the record by Madam Secretary and is recommended by the Gaming Control Board.
Right. Any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. Thank you. Madam Secretary, could you please read in the restricted consent items?
Your items on the restricted consent agenda this morning are items 9, 12, and 13. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with the conditions as noted on the agenda. I believe we have a recusal on these items.
Thank you. I'm recusing on item number 9 because my husband represents the applicant.
Okay, so what we will do then, if someone, if there's, first of all, are there any discussion, is there any discussion on items 9, 12, or 13? There being none, may I have a motion as to items 12 and 13?
I move for approval of restricted items, consent restricted items number 12 and 13 is read into the record by Madam Secretary and is recommended by the Gaming Control Board with the conditions as recommended.
Is there any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. At this time, Commissioner Brown is recused from item number 9. Does someone have a motion on item number 9?
Madam Chair, I move for approval of restricted item number 9 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and as recommended by the Gaming Control Board.
Is there any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed, and the record should reflect Commissioner Brown did not vote on restricted item number 9. That moves us to the non-restricted items held out for discussion. Madam Secretary, if you could read in non-restricted number 1.
Non-restricted number 1 is the application of APIX Pioneer Vote Co. LLC for a transfer of interest as noted on the agenda. It is also the application of Daniel Cohen for finding of suitability as a managing member and the applications of Daniel Cohen, Julia Brown, Monica Diglio Lee, Ike Epstein, and Yasmin Khalil for finding of suitability as a manager. Recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval, and I believe we have disclosures on this item.
Madam Chair, with respect to restricted item number 1, non-restricted item number 1, I have a disclosure with respect to it. I'm a partner at Morris Law Group. My firm and I previously served as local counsel for Apollo Global Management, Inc. and some of its subsidiaries in unrelated litigation in federal court that has since concluded. The representation was not material to the firm and has been concluded last year. I have no pecuniary interest in the matter before us and do not believe my prior representation would affect the independence of court judgment of a reasonable person and thus intend to participate in deliberation and voting.
Yeah.
Commissioner Martinez.
Yeah. Madam Chair, I also have a disclosure. I would like to disclose with respect to all the applicants and entities that fall under non-restricted item number 1. That I was employed by the Venetian Resort as its CEO during the sale process of the property to the Apollo Global Management and subsequently thereafter until my departure in July of 2022. Board members of that property are before us today. I no longer have any connection to the property and no pecuniary interest in the outcome of any of the proceedings today. Prior to that, I served as the president of Carson International, which was the flagship Atlantis Casino in the Bahamas. During my time there, Miss Monica DiGilio, also a board member of in front of us today, was the corporate human resources officer for that organization, and I and she developed a very close working relationship during that time. I have a high regard for all of these persons standing before us today. I do not believe that these relationships would impede any reasonable person's judgment in my situation. Therefore, I will be fully participating in the voting and all of these matters before us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Excuse me. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission, Madam Secretary. Sonia Vermaze from the law firm Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck here on behalf of the applicants. By way of background, as you know, the Venetian is owned ultimately by a private investment company registered under Regulation 15C. The entity that is the general partner and essentially the voting entity for that private investment company is Pioneer Topco GP LLC. The individual applicants here this morning and those that are waived are the managers that sit on the board of managers for that entity. I would like to thank you for allowing Ms. Julia Brown, one of the managers, to appear by Zoom. I'd also like to thank you for allowing the appearance waivers for Daniel Cohen and for Lawrence Epstein. Both individuals have been previously licensed and have appeared before the board and the commission. Both have had no areas of interest or concern with their investigations, and the board unanimously recommended their approval. With that, I would ask that you take any of these three that are here one at a time to ask any questions that you have of them or to hear about their background. Obviously, a lot of that was given before the board.
We appreciate that, and we appreciate them being here, those that are in person and those that are here by Zoom. If we could just call them one at a time, get the opportunity to meet them and ask any questions that my colleagues may have. I think that you all understand that the open meeting laws don't allow me to discuss this with other commissioners, so I don't know who will have questions and who won't. And I know it may appear somewhat duplicative and maybe a little frustrating in that regard, but we appreciate your appearance. And at this time, if you could call each one forward.
Sure.
So we could-
Ms. Brown, why don't we start with you since you're appearing by Zoom, if that's all right? Ms.
Sure,
Julia
that's
Brown?
great. Thank you, Sonia. And thank you for your time and consideration today to the commission, and also by allowing me to participate by Zoom. By way of introduction, I currently hold a board portfolio in a variety of industries. On the public side, I serve on 2 boards based here in the US. One is Solo Brand, the other is Molson Coors Beverage. I also serve on 2 public boards in Europe, Ocado PLC in the UK and Perigo in Dublin, Ireland. On the private side, I serve on 3 boards, Core Trust, owned by Blackstone and Shutterfly, and the Venetian by Apollo, which is what brings me here today. And I additionally serve on as a trustee for 2 nonprofits. One is the Perez Museum in Miami. It's an art museum. And the second is a professional association for purchasing and supply executives chartered by the King of England called SIPS. I reside in Miami, and I'm open for questions that you may have.
Well, hopefully it takes the sting away of having to be here twice to have many regulators in Nevada comment on how impressed we are with your qualifications. It has to be a boost in that regard. I'm going to open it up for any questions that my colleagues have or comments. Starting on this side, Commissioner Marcantonis, I'll start with you.
Thank you for appearing. I have no further questions and comments. Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Commissioner Brown.
Mrs. Brown, thank you again for coming. I enjoyed watching your more thorough presentation before the Gaming Control Board, and I'm very happy to see that you are working with a nonprofit with the Art Museum. I think art is very important, especially for young children. So thank you for your work and impressive background. No areas of concern. Thank you.
Commissioner Krolicki.
Good morning, and you're most welcome being here, and it's nice to see you, and very impressive. My comment is, it's almost so impressive. I am concerned about time issues. I am someone who serves on boards, including public boards, and it takes a lot of time. And normally a nomination governance committee approves additional work obligations for me, including my gaming commission opportunity, just because you have to allocate your time. Now, you are in so many different positions and boards, and I'm not sure if you chair any of the committees, but could you just affirm that the various companies have approved your participation in this matter, and that you believe you've got sufficient time? And we all multitask, and God bless you for doing it, but just you've got an enormously large fiduciary responsibility on these various companies, and just your assurance that you can fulfill your obligations here also.
Yes, I can definitely assure that. With accepting each of the board seats, I did check with all of my other boards to gain their approval. I actually just recently stepped down from one public company board in order to ensure that I could manage the responsibilities that I do have. And I'm confident that I can serve the Venetian with the same amount of robustness that I do for boards.
I appreciate that response. Some ways I envy your world here. It's very complex, but very impressive, and welcome to Nevada.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Solis Rainey.
Thank you, Ms. Brown, and welcome. It's a pleasure to meet you, even if it's by Zoom. I had similar questions with respect to the amount of time that the board responsibilities take, or that you anticipate they will take.
Yeah, so are you speaking in regards specifically to the Venetian?
Yes, yeah, specifically to this one.
Yeah, so in fact, I was just in Vegas this week for our board meeting, but unfortunately today I have another board meeting in Dallas. So I appreciate you allowing me to participate via Zoom. But on a quarterly basis, I estimate somewhere between 2 to 3 days in terms of preparation and participation, physical participation in the board meetings.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I had no concerns with your background. I mean, as everybody has already said, it's very impressive. And I appreciate both your public service and also your volunteer service. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else? Who do you want to call next?
Yasmin Khalil will come up now.
Ms. Khalil?
Good morning, Madam Chair and Mr. and Mrs. Commissioner. Thank you for having me today. Usually I speak loud. I'm open for questions. Just give you a little bit of background. Yasmin Khalil, I'm from Montreal, Canada. I recently was approved for my gaming license in Canada. So went through the process slightly different, but in Canada, I am on the board of Great Canadian Gaming, also owned by Apollo. And so for that license, I was required to obtain it from each single province. Which was in itself a labor of love, but it equates getting it for just Nevada. So it was already getting me involved in that process. So my background, I spent the last 25 years working for Cirque du Soleil. I was actually 25 years ago started at Cirque, and my first task was finding a name for the water show on the Strip, which is which was celebrated this week for its 25th anniversary. I was in charge of creation, production, and business development. So I was very busy traveling a lot for the last 25 years. Once I left Cirque right after the pandemic, I was able to participate in tasks and labors of love of being able to give back, which I didn't really have much time to do for the 25 years that I was working. And so I am supporting a few different initiatives from coaching women entrepreneurs, supporting different initiatives from I have a few women that I work with, just helping them through different types of coaching. Prior to Cirque du Soleil, which was a big part of my career, I was working in casinos. I was training croupiers in one of my first jobs on cruise ships, and then when Montreal opened their first casinos, I was very much involved in training all the teachers that were training thousands of croupiers. So it's interesting today to bring my experience from casinos and my experience from entertainment and marketing and brand, and bring all those things together and contribute to these sports.
Well, thank you for being here today. Impressive resume and a success story, working your way up in the ladder. I'm going to open it up to this side this time. Commissioner Krolicki.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. I don't have a question. I just have appreciation. One of my former hats was chairman of the Tourism Commission of Nevada, and what you did for several decades to help bring people to Nevada, not in the gaming capacity, but just for the entertainment value. And I had to watch all half dozen shows or whatever they were, but the magic and just beauty that you've brought to the Strip and your company has just been magnificent. So I just want to say thank you, and I welcome you coming from this gaming angle today. But again, you've helped change and make this place, Las Vegas, an extraordinary destination.
Yeah, I mean, I often say, when I joined Cirque, Vegas was the gaming capital of the world. And when I left Cirque, Vegas was the entertainment capital of the world. And I hope that I feel that I participated greatly in that transformation.
This person's observation, you did. Thank you.
Commissioner Solis Rainey.
Thank you. I echo Commissioner Krolicki's comments. And I was just curious, were you ever on the performance side of Cirque?
No, but I was juggling all sorts of different things.
You're a juggler.
I'm a professional juggler, so juggling quite a few things. And Cirque is probably the best school for that, especially as a woman. When I joined Cirque, it was different times, and so I made it to the very top of the company, and I believe I was given a lot of great opportunities, which I made for myself as well. But throughout that time, learning to juggle so many different things. So I thank them for that.
Well, thank you. Your contributions are certainly noticed by me as well. And I also wanted to thank you for mentoring women. I think it's very important that we, boost each other up. And allow more young women to grow into their full
agree.
potential. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I don't have any
Thank you very
concerns or
much.
questions with respect to your background.
Commissioner Brown?
Impressive background. So nice to meet you in person. I think that, you know, you have such an interesting perspective and it lends itself very well to the board. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity for you. And do you go back to Cairo and visit family? Do you still have family there?
Yes, I do. They're getting older, but I do. And I was actually living in Egypt. I went on vacation once and I was called in by London Clubs, which is, you know, a great casino establishment. They were opening casinos in on the Red Sea, and I just happened to be there on vacation, and they found out I was there, and they offered me a job, and I stayed 2 years in Egypt, building up a casino there. And so again, it's just I was on the marketing side of it, but still, it's funny how, you know, life does you know, makes a loop and everything comes together.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so
It's a
much.
pleasure meeting you.
Commissioner Marcantonis?
Well, I've had the pleasure, Ms. Khalil, of listening to the Nevada Gaming Control Board testimonies as well, and knowing your background so well. I echo everyone else's congratulations. Did I hear you say that the Canadian licensing process was less rigorous than
Well,
Nevada?
It's funny because when I was going through it, it was like province by province. And so each one, it was in itself like getting a different license. And so when I was asked to join this board, I thought, you know, they said, you're going to have to go through the Nevada Licensing Commission. And I said, piece of cake. I've got this covered. And actually, as I mentioned the other day, I was completely wrong on that. But as I was mentioning to the chairman last time I was here, you know, the process was great in getting to know myself much better and, you know, understand. I mean, I feel as though I know everything about myself today, which I may not have before. So it was good for that. And also I feel that there's a rigor there that allows you to come out of the process and really feel that, you know, you've kind of just proven yourself and in a, you know, ethical and making sure that your background is so perfectly clean. And I feel that we went through that. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for all of your comments and can add humor to your juggling. And so we always appreciate that. A good laugh is enjoyable for us. And it was very nice meeting you.
Same. Thank you so
I'm
much for
sure
your
you're gonna have
time.
you're gonna have support for your application.
I
So thank you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Right. And last we have, but not least, Ms. Monica DeGilio Lee.
Good morning. Thank
Morning.
you for your time. Thank you, Madam Chair Tagliati. Thank you, Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Solis Rainey, Commissioner Kralicki, and Commissioner Marcantonis. And thank you, Madam Secretary. I'll share my background, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thank you.
My professional career was spent really predominantly in the hospitality and gaming industry, which really occupies a big part of my heart. My hospitality and gaming career began with a 10-year tenure at ITT Sheraton, where I held multiple human resources positions, and which culminated in me becoming the head of human resources for the North America and franchise divisions. During my tenure, I was also involved in 1995 in the company's acquisition of Caesars World, and I was heavily involved in the HR planning and integration work that took place when the company was acquired in 1998 by Starwood. In 1999, I joined Sun International, which later changed the company name to Carson International. I served as their Chief Human Resources Officer for almost 13 years, until 2012. The company is most known for its Atlantis and One and Only brands, and their gaming and destination resorts around the world. I'd say that during my tenure, there are many things that I'm proud of, the people that I had the opportunity to work with. I'm most proud of the positive social and economic impact we had on the communities where we did business. It was very important. It was part of the DNA of the company, and we cared very much about our 20,000 team members and our guests and the communities where we did business. In 2012, I joined Montage Hotels and Resorts as Chief Human Resources Officer. And during my 6.5-year tenure there, I was part of a very small team that tripled the size of the company at that time. We launched the Pendry brand, and we also grew our community impact groups of Hearts of Montage and Hearts of Pendry, which supported local causes focused on children's education, senior citizen care, food insecurity, healthcare and disease prevention, and environmental protection. In 2018, I was excited to join Caesars Entertainment as their Executive Vice President and Chief Human Resources Officer, where I was responsible for and led the HR function for the company, as well as the corporate social responsibility function. I also served as the chairperson of Caesars Foundation, which was established to fund nonprofit projects in local communities where Caesars Entertainment did business. I also proudly led the standing up of the establishment of Caesars Cares, which was an assistance fund that we established to support team members during who suffered unanticipated hardships due to events such as acts of nature, including during the closure of all of our properties during the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2021, I started my own company. It's a consulting business that is focused on helping companies with HR strategy, anything related to sort of people planning. I also currently serve on a number of boards. I'm on the board of Sunstone Hotel Investors, which is a public REIT in the lodging space. Copper Point Insurance Companies based out of Phoenix, Arizona, and the Venetian Resort in Las Vegas. I also have been for 13 years on Cornell University's Pillsbury Institute for Entrepreneurship in their School of Hotel Administration. It's a labor of love. I love working with students and helping to grow the next generation of talent in hospitality and gaming. I'm an active member in the communities where I live. I was a proud member of the Laguna Food Pantry in Laguna Beach, California. I'm currently actively involved in the Boys and Girls Club of Bellport, New York, which is where I'm from and where I currently live, and the Gateway Community Theater and Education Program in Bellport. And I'm very proud to serve on the Venetian board. I'm very proud of the very talented team there and the focus on our team members, our community, and our guests. And thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Well, thank you very much. I think there's a theme here of overachievers. I'm going to open it up for any comments or questions, starting with Commissioner Marcantonis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Gilio. I don't think there's absolutely anything I do not know about you anymore. So congratulations, and I would be proud and honored to support all of your applications. Thank you.
Commissioner Brown?
Truly impressed by the cadre of fierce, strong women and other candidates that have been presented for us today. I'm just very impressed. And I love that you make pro bono and charity work part of your fabric of your daily life. It seems like it's a true commitment and that you spend the time, especially with the Laguna project. I think you started at inception to make sure that got off the ground. So just very impressive. I think that busy people get things done, and this is a true example. So just very impressed with all of you, including you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Solis-Rainey?
I thank you for being here. I don't have any questions or concerns regarding your background. I'm just sorry you're not from Las Vegas, so you could contribute to our community here.
Thank you. I miss, we lived here for 2 years and we were sorry to leave. It's a wonderful community and wonderful people, and there's nothing like it in the world. So I'm happy that I get the opportunity to come back at least 4 times a year.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Krolicki?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Your comment about a collection of overachievers is spot on. Incredibly impressive. It's the breadth of your experiences. In your spare time, you should perhaps consider writing a book because you've probably seen it all, given your various responsibilities in the past. But specifically on this, just again, if the theme is, being able to allocate your time appropriately to fulfill responsibilities. There's a 20-25% note in our package about your time being dedicated to Venetian matters. So I just, on the record, just confirm that you are perfectly comfortable that you can perform all of your fiduciary responsibilities, in this capacity on the board of Venetian.
Thank you. Thank you. My dad taught me from my early days, don't do it if you can't do it well. So I'm careful about what I take on. So on the consulting side of what I do, I'll be honest, in the first year of my business, I didn't say no to a lot of people who came to me and needed help. And then I realized after that first year that I needed to have a little more balance. So there are projects I don't take on. People who come to my consulting firm, I refer them to people that I know and trust and can do good work for them, because the work that I do on the boards and then my community work, that's really my priority. So I have complete confidence that I have the time and I'm able to give my full commitment to my work on the Venetian.
Are you the chairman of the compensation committee?
No, I'm not. I'm a member of the compensation committee. I'm the chair of the compensation committee of Sunstone, but not the Venetian, but I am a member.
Do you have other committee assignments for the Venetian?
No, just compensation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here today. Ms. Vermees, do you have anything else?
No, Madam Chair, thank you for your courtesy and your kind words for this group of diverse and impressive and dedicated group of individuals, and we appreciate your support this morning.
All right, it appears this is in proper form for a motion.
Certainly. Madam Chair, I move for approval of all of the applicants falling under non-restricted items number 1 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and as recommended by the Nevada Gaming Control Board. Thank you.
All right, any discussion on the motion?
I think it's also an application for the transfers of interest as well, separate and apart from the suitability.
Right, which would be an entity transaction. Yes.
And
We
that's
need to
part
read
of the
that as a
motion?
separate, yes, it's part of the
Okay.
motion.
So both are being made as part of the motion. So is there any discussion on the motion?
No.
There being no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this time, Madam Secretary, could you please read in non-restricted number 2? Goodbye, Ms. Brown.
Non-restricted number 2 are the applications of GAN Limited for registration as a publicly traded corporation, for licensure as a sole shareholder of GAN UK Limited, and to pledge equity securities as noted on the agenda. It is also the applications of Seamus McGill, Jan Roos, and David Goldberg for licensure and or finding of suitability as an officer and or director as noted on the agenda. You also have the applications of GAN UK Limited for registration as an intermediary company, for licensure as a manufacturer, and for licensure as a sole shareholder of GAN Nevada Inc. It is also the applications of GAN Nevada Inc. for licensure as a manufacturer and distributor and for licensure as an information service. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda. I believe we have a disclosure on this item.
Yes, thank you so much. Game Account Network PLC is a current client of Lewis Roca, the firm where I am a partner in intellectual property matters in which I'm not personally involved. I have no pecuniary interest in the outcome of this agenda item, and I do not believe the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my position would be affected by the relationship described on the record, and I therefore intend to participate. Thank you.
Commissioner Krolicki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also like to disclose Mr. Scherer has served as my personal attorney on a variety of matters previously, nothing currently. So I conclude that the independence of judgment of a reasonable person in my situation would not be materially affected. And because of that, I will fully participate in this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Tagliati, Commissioners, Madam Secretary. For the record, Scott Scherer of Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck, appearing on behalf of the applicants. First, I'd like to thank you, Madam Chair, for agreeing to trail this item. If I was not able to get here in time, I fortunately wrapped up my district court hearing promptly and was able to get here, but that did give me peace of mind that you were willing to do that. And I greatly appreciate it.
I think I told you I know what district court judges can be like.
So with me today, I'd like to introduce Seamus McGill, President, CEO, and Chairman of the Board, David Goldberg, Director and Chair of the Audit Committee, Brian Chang, who's the Acting Chief Financial Officer, Tina Robinson, Senior Vice President of Gaming Compliance, Jan Roos, the Chief Technology Officer, and Sylvia Tiscareño, the Chief Legal Officer. I'd also like to extend our thanks to Senior Agent Tan, Supervisor Bradford, Special Agent Crowley, Special Agent TP, and Deputy Chief Taggio for their professionalism and courtesy in handling these matters. We did make a presentation to the Gaming Control Board. I believe you should have a copy of that slide deck in your materials.
We do.
We'd be happy to have Mr. McGill go through those slides.
I don't think
Like,
that's required. We all usually, and I'll confirm at this point, have the opportunity to observe the board meeting. It was a very thorough presentation and question and answer session. And so I am comfortable with you making introductions and getting people forward to have any questions answered.
great, let's bring forward Mr. McGill first then.
Good morning.
Morning, Madam Chair. And good morning, Commissioners. My name is Seamus McGill. I am interim CEO of GAN Limited.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Again, we have the benefit of your previous presentation. And so I am going to open it up for any questions or comments, starting with Commissioner Solis Rainey, perhaps. Or do you want to?
Yeah, can you start with somebody else?
Sure. Commissioner Brown.
So this is for him individually, may I ask?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome. Thank you for coming. I just had a question about the application of the complaint for the writ in the nature of mandamus in 2006. There was a stipulated motion to remand the action back to the U.S. Citizenship and Naturalization Services Office, but that wasn't filed until January 17th, 2017. I'm trying to understand, and it was adjudicated in February of 2017. Why was there such a delay, if you can explain that?
Could you repeat that again? Please,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
So there's an application that you filed in 2006?
Me personally.
Yes.
Yes.
In connection with the naturalization, but then something wasn't filed until January of 2017 and then approved. So I'm trying to understand procedurally why there was such a large delay in time.
No particular reason other than I don't even recall 2006, what I did in 2006, but in 2017, I needed to become a citizen. I was told that from a my wife at the time was we had a young child. We were commuting back and forth to England. We had a home in England, but I needed to be in Nevada. And in order for her to get a green card and become a citizen, I needed to become a citizen. So
You moved on it finally.
I moved on
Understood.
it. And I didn't realize at the time how long it was actually going to take.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just needed clarification on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Marcantonis, any questions?
I was very satisfied with what I heard at the Nevada Gaming Control Board. Mr. McGill, obviously, I'm very impressed with the mission statement of your company. The intent is exactly what we would like to hear from every company, as shown in the documents. And you were to submit a compliance plan, I think, as an organization. And has that been as yet submitted, or is that still pending?
That has been submitted to the Investigations Division for their review.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Krolicki.
Hi, and thank you, Mr. McGill. It's a pleasure, and Mr. Chair. If I can ask my colleague, what has been submitted? I didn't hear.
The compliance plan
Compliance plan.
for the organization.
So, Mr. McGill, again, welcome. Thank you. Exhaustive work by the Gaming Control Board, and certainly at the Gaming Control Board meeting earlier this month. You certainly have a challenging situation. Your world is complex. Your life experience and skill sets. You're the right guy for the right opportunity at the right time, despite it being incredibly difficult. But let me just confirm: you're currently wearing three hats? You're the chairman, president, and CEO of GAN at this point?
Yes, but the board has to convene, but I would have to step down as chairman of the company,
Okay.
which we are planning to in the next couple of weeks.
Mr. Sheriff's Counsel, I'm sure you're aware that you have to file an application for that new chairman within 12 months. Yes? All right. Can one of you confirm that there are no, I mean, and this was part of the conversation at the Gaming Control Board meeting, that there are currently no defaults on the credit facility, that is, all all fine at this point. And I see for the record, the interim CFO nodding his head. That's correct. So that's fine.
Correct. That's correct.
Who's your outside auditor? It's a public company. Oh, I'm sorry. Make you rush
Hi,
up.
Brian Chang, interim CFO. Grant Thornton is currently our auditors.
And which office?
It's technically the Los Angeles office where the main partner's based out of. However, we have managers from Missouri because it's hard to find an audit firm that has both software expertise as well as gaming expertise in one partner. So we have multiple partners and managers help in the engagement.
All right, thank you. Yeah, again, Mr.
Thanks, Brian.
McGill, your world is complex. I think your stock's trading at $1.05 today. You're flirting with the NASDAQ listing issues. But again, I wish you the very best as you go forward. I do have one other set of questions. Again, this was discussed during the Gaming Control Board, and I just want to better understand it because our technology division has been very busy in monitoring all of these situations. And I know with GameStack, the folks at Red Rock and Win are very eager for these things to all move forward. Can you just confirm, and I don't think there was a firm answer last time, when the GameStack and the technology was actually submitted to the technology division, the Gaming Control Board? Because in the notes to something of as of August 30, GAN had not submitted GameStack platform to Gaming Control Board here.
If we can have Tina Robinson, who's the Senior Vice President of Gaming Compliance, come forward and respond to that. I think she's got all the information about exactly what was submitted when.
Perfect. It's going to be a good question, Mr. Scherer and Mr. McGill can tackle it.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Tina Robinson, SVP Compliance for GAN. And the answer to that question, we were working originally with Nevada Game Lab, and we made the operational decision to go with GLI. That was submitted on May 17th, and we locked down our platform for testing on June 7th. We are currently in the final phase. We have the audit process that's taking place right now. GLI will be done the week of November 3rd, as well as we'll have our report November 10th, and then they'll be doing a demo with the Nevada lab on the 10th.
All right, so there's still lots of moving pieces, but in terms of the Gaming Control Board, of Nevada, our technology division, they've been meeting with you, they are prepared, and they are doing all that they can to make sure at the right time they will work expeditiously to give you, their answer.
100%. They have provided us all the checklists that have to be submitted. So once we get that GLI certification, we will submit the actual full package for their review.
I have no further questions. Again, it was an exhaustive hearing and a good one at the Gaming Control Board level, but appreciate you being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Commissioner Solis Rainey.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow a question on that. Our materials had indicated that you anticipated submitting to the technology division on October 27th. So as of now, that's pushed at least until November because you're waiting for your GLI certification.
Correct. They're in the final phase of auditing, and that has been confirmed that they'll be done on the 3rd of November.
Okay.
Any more questions or comments? No. Thank you very much, both of you. Do you want, let's see, who would you like to have speak to us next?
Perhaps we have Jan Roos come forward next.
And Chair, if I may, before you step down, who do I ask questions about Mr. Smurfit's recent departure? Who's the appropriate person? Because if it's him, I don't want him to step down, so I can ask.
Probably be either Mr. McGill or Ms. Tiscareño. Either one could.
What does Mr. McGill want?
I'd like to defer.
You're in charge. Who do you want to answer that question?
I'd like to defer to Ms. Tiscareño.
Okay, could she come up? Good morning.
Good morning. For the record, Sylvia Tiscareño, Chief Legal Officer for GAN.
Welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question about the notification that was received by the Gaming Control Board on September 20th, 2023, when they were notified that GAN's Board of Directors made the decision to remove Dermot Smurfit as the President, CEO, and Director of GAN Limited and its subsidiaries because of areas of concern that were revealed during his investigation relating to non-disclosure of assets and sexual harassment allegations. And I just wanted to know for the record, were the sexual harassment allegations prior to his time at GAN or during his time at GAN?
They were during his time at GAN.
Okay. And I just wanted to know what kind of due diligence you're doing before you invite people at top levels in terms of history and background to see if anything like this has been alleged in the past.
So right now, we're not onboarding anyone new. Obviously, as a result, we're discussing the different types of things with compliance that we could implement as part of our own due diligence process. Quite frankly, the exhaustive regulatory process does weed out a lot of things. However, to be clear, there was nothing ever that we would have discovered in this particular instance that would have revealed any concerns.
I was just trying to understand what kind of due diligence you do or have done before bringing people on at these very high levels internally, if there's anything you can disclose.
The background checks essentially that include public information as well as going through the criminal backgrounds and the regulatory investigation process.
Okay, thank you for answering that question.
Of course.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, thank you.
With respect to the background checks, are those done internally or do you have an outside company?
We use a third party, but it's run through our internal HR department.
And what's the relationship between Mr. Dermot Smurfit and Michael Smurfit?
They are cousins, first cousins.
First cousin?
Yes.
Is Mr. Michael Smurfit, is his application, is I know he doesn't have an application pending this go around. Is he in the queue? Is that somebody that's
My understanding, Scott, is that he does have to submit his application.
He's in the process of preparing it. It has not been filed yet.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions on that issue at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now who are we going to call up next? Thank you, sir.
Mr. Jan Roos, Chief Technology Officer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Commissioners. My name is Jan Roos. I will give a brief introduction about myself, then you can ask questions. So I live and work in Estonia. I have a master's level of education. I have been working in software development, different companies, in banking and in online gaming. So the last job before joining my current company was for Betson Group. It's one of the biggest gaming groups online. I was the development center manager in Tallinn. On 2015, I joined Coolbet as the first employee. So first year it was just IT company. We were just developing our product. And in about 1 year after starting, we went live with our own software, which was centered around sports betting. On 2021, very beginning, Coolbet was acquired by GAN. And very end of this year, I got promoted to the global CTO of the GAN. Our very first launch in US was 2022 in September. We launched our retail product in Mississippi. Second launch was in Massachusetts. And now we hope we can launch our product in Nevada in second half of November. Also, I am a management board member of a club in Estonia called Kopteri Klubi. It means, translates to helicopter club. It is a hobby club promoting building and flying remote controlled helicopters.
Can you spell it for my court reporter?
Kopteri Klubi? Yes. KOPTERIKLUBY.
Thank you.
Klubi.
Sounds fun.
It is, yes.
Especially in Estonia. Wouldn't mind being there while I was doing it. Okay, so I'm going to open up for any questions or comments, starting with Commissioner Marcantonis.
Thank you. I'm satisfied very much with what I heard of the Gaming Control Board. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Brown.
Thank you for coming all this way. We appreciate it very much. Just curious, how did you transition from your career as a software developer in the financial arena into the gaming arena?
Yep, pretty much every company where I started as a software developer, except Coolbet. And I just got promoted to some level of manager, senior developer, or yeah, in Betson Group, I got promoted several times.
How did you go from the financial sector to Betson?
From financial sector to gaming. I just got headhunted.
I was curious.
Awesome.
Concise and perfect answer. Thank you. I have no areas of concern. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Commissioner Solis Rainey.
I don't have any questions. Thank you for being here and for your presentation.
Good to be here.
Commissioner Krolicki.
Madam Chair, thank you. I don't have any questions, but as usual, I always have a comment. And whenever I can work curling into the conversation, that's a good thing. Believe it or not, I can. Your professional resume is wonderful, and I have no reservations about you moving forward in this capacity. But I do want you to know that Curling Talon is Prodigious Curling Club, which is the sister club of Lake Tahoe Epic Curling, and so this is good. I have had the great pleasure of being in Talon on multiple occasions. Extraordinary city, gorgeous city. The original curling facility was a former Soviet missile factory. It's a perfect floor for curling, but now you may have been there, but they have a new ice facility for curling, hockey, and an extra arena. It's just a fabulous facility near the airport. But again, I am a fan of Talon and your hometown, and I have no problems. And again, thank you for letting me have the opportunity to mention curling at a gaming commission meeting.
Thank you. I should actually check it out then.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think the last of the applicants is David Goldberg, who's Director and Chair of the Audit Committee.
Sir, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, but did my undergrad and graduate schools in Chicago, Northwestern undergrad, University of Chicago for business school. In Chicago parlance, that's North Side, South Side. So I spent my early career working as a concert promoter, and then in an adjacent manner went to work for Ticketmaster, who I was a client of when I was a concert promoter. I then tried my hat at a couple startups, one in the digital music space. We ran sites like rollingstone.com, and then a digital sports startup where I think, as I mentioned to the board, we created the yellow 1st and 10 line on football broadcasts, which I hope all of you enjoy at some point. Eventually sold both those businesses, moved to Los Angeles to go back to work for Ticketmaster, this time running all of our international businesses, M&A strategy, and expansion work for the company. After leaving Ticketmaster, I took my first job in the gaming industry. I became CEO of a company called ubet.com. Ubet was the largest legal wagering site in the US, advanced deposit wagering, horse race betting only. It was interesting because we took a category that definitely was in decline or had challenges in the horse racing space, and were able to infuse technology and bring new people into the industry, which I thought was an important move for especially that particular vertical of the industry. After selling that to Churchill Downs, I've been doing a series of advisory and operating gigs. And now most recently, I spent the past 7 years as an advisor to TPG, the global private equity firm. And I help advise on investments in online gaming as well as live entertainment, and have a portfolio of companies around the world that I work with. Also, as mentioned before the board, I do believe at this point, the plurality of my time is spent with a nonprofit that I chair and helped start up over 10 years ago called Kid Museum. And we focus on at-risk youth and underrepresented communities and exposing them to maker-based learning using STEAM and STEM learning. First to help improve their outcomes in school, but ultimately to improve those outcomes in the work world. And that type of public service is important for my whole family. My wife is a full-time volunteer for a very important safety organization, as well as the Smithsonian. And my daughter's pursuing a master's in social work, and my son wants to serve in the State Department after graduating with a international relations degree. So hopefully it translates to the next generation down.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you being here. I'd like to open it up for any questions or comments, starting with Commissioner Marcantonis.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. One quick question. I'm sorry, this is going to drive me nuts for a while. One day, a group of you got around the table and said, most people can't see where a first down is, and we better put a big fat yellow line on the TV screen. I mean, how did you come up with that?
There are three criteria we came up with as to whether or not a broadcast technology enhancement was worthwhile. That's the long term for it. Does the action happen often in the game itself? Is the action hard for the naked eye to see? And is the action important towards the outcome of the event itself? And if it meets those three criteria, that's when we decide to invest and build something out. And the yellow first and 10 line definitely does those three.
Remarkable. It's really remarkable. And you keep using the word action, which doesn't really exist in the other game, curling, which is why you haven't done anything with it. Thank you, Chair.
Point of order.
Commissioner Brown.
I commend you and your family and the culture you've instilled in your family to give back to the community and to participate in a meaningful way, especially the project that you've been working on for over 10 years with the youth. I think it really is very important work that you're doing, and I'm impressed with that.
Thank you.
You're very busy with very many other things, so to make time for something like that over a decade is impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Solis Rainey.
I don't have any additional comments, but welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kolicki.
As do I. Your professional and civic portfolio is extraordinary and welcome and impressive, and good on you. Certainly the meeting from the Gaming Control Board was, I keep saying this, exhaustive. So, questions I had previously have certainly been successfully addressed. I too, not only the first down in NFL, but the strike zone box.
Yes.
Whoever did that, that wasn't you.
That was the same K zone, as we called it. Yes.
K zone.
Same criteria, and it works equally well.
I'd like to meet that individual too. And you're from St. Louis. Our investigative report doesn't go back that far. Which high school did you go to?
Ladue High School. That is a proper St. Louis question.
And I went to Parkway West.
Perfect.
That was
Neighbors.
Chesterfield. So he was 10 minutes away from me growing up. Well, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it very much. Do I have any additional questions or comments from the commission on any of the item before us today?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know who the correct person is to speak to this, but it relates to the amendment on April 13th, 2023 to the credit agreement and the increase of the debt by an additional 12 million. So I was a little bit concerned that there was a default at least 6 months ago and that the debt was increased. And I just want somebody to discuss very briefly and concisely the financial health and forecast and if there are any events of default that are occurring at this time.
Sure. So the incremental 12 million was ultimately it became a math problem because we had certain provisions in the original credit facility that we were working with the prior lender Beach Point to settle. And so based on those provisions, that's why we required additional principal from our current lender Sega. And as it relates to forecasts and risks with the available information we have at this moment, there are no concerns of meeting any of our compliance, which is really a very simple criteria of $10 million in the facility.
So there's currently no event of default because I know over 6 months ago, there were a number of events of default and that caused me a little bit of concern.
Correct. And those were all waived and we were working actively with the lender as part of the process. And those were all waived as part of the amendments.
Excellent. Thank you for that response. It's very helpful.
Any additional questions or comments? All right, there being none, it would appear it's in proper form for a motion.
I move for approval of non-restricted item number 2 is read into the record by two, right?
Yes.
As read into the record by Madam Secretary and recommended by the Game Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are none opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
At this time, Madam Secretary, could you please read in non-restricted number 3?
Non-restricted number 3 are the applications of GR Regency Gaming LLC for licensure as a sole member and manager of Plantation Investments LLC, Carson Plains Investments LLC, Silver Strike Investments LLC, and Silverado Gas and Sea Investments LLC, as well as the application to pledge equity securities as noted on the agenda. It is also the application of Plantation Investments LLC, doing business as Rail City Casino for a transfer of interest as noted on the agenda, for licensure as a manufacturer and distributor, and to add, remove, or modify conditions. You also have the applications of Carson Plains Investments LLC, doing business as Carson Plains Casino, Silver Strike Investments LLC, doing business as Silver Strike Casino, and Silverado Casino Investments LLC, doing business as Silverado Casino for a non-restricted gaming license and for licensure as a manufacturer and distributor. Lastly, you have the applications of Silverado Gas and Sea Investments LLC, doing business as Silverado Chevron and Carson Plains Investment LLC, doing business as Carson Plains Market for restricted gaming license. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Tagliati, members of the commission, Madam Secretary. For the record, I'm Michael Alonso, and I'm here on behalf of Truckee Gaming LLC and GR Regency Gaming LLC.
Well, I want to start on this item by saying this item is Exhibit A, how helpful it is when a licensee has an attorney or a registered agent that can streamline and preemptively address issues that the board and the commission might have with discussion of employees being retained, having the same benefits, including even better health insurance, and the exceptional presentation, I might add, an analysis of 3070. So I'm not going to ask you for an affirmative presentation. I'm going to open it up for questions and comments, if that's
Would
okay
you go
with you.
straight to a motion?
Wow. You know what? I called that in court. Motion to give me what I want.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Would
So I'm
you
going to
like
open.
introductions at least?
Sure, of course.
With me, standing with me is Terrence Zoni, who's the sole member of Truckee Gaming LLC, he's the Chief Executive Officer and a member of the Truckee Gaming LLC Board of Managers. He's been in the industry for a very long time and has a long licensing history with the commission. Also in the back, and he'll wave or stand up, is Tom Benninger, and he's a member of Truckee Gaming LLC Board of Managers, and he also has a long history in the gaming industry and has been licensed several times as a member of boards of directors of public companies. And I'd also like to introduce Pete McHugh, who is the Chief Operating Officer for Truckee Gaming LLC, and he will be the key employee at the Rail City Casino. And as you know from your materials, that has a key employee condition, and he'll be submitting that within the time period required. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'm going to start with, who wants to start? Commissioner Krolicki.
Thank you. Welcome and good morning. And I will share the chair's observation of the explanations and backup materials have made this much easier to get a handle on and prepare for your visit this morning. So good on you and well done. I know that Mr. Zoni doesn't have an individual application in front of us today, but if he did, it would include his service to the state of Nevada. And this is twice I've mentioned it, and it's not curling, but the Nevada Commission on Tourism. And you served, I think, as vice chair, but a long time member for the Nevada Commission on Tourism. You made it fun, you made it better. You always took additional assignments, and I'm grateful for your service to the state and help make the commission look brilliant and great. We've obviously been familiar with each other for many years. For a young man, you've been licensed for a very long time, but I have absolutely no questions. I think this is splendid. And again, the content continuity of benefits and other things that are important to just the people who help you do these things and work in these establishments. It's seamless, it's wonderful, and again, good on you. But I have no opposition and only enthusiastic support and cheerleading for what you're doing, Mr. Zoni.
Thank you.
Commissioner Solis Rainey.
I don't have any questions. Thank you for being here and thank you for the presentation. I mean, I think having everything covered just makes this really easy and I would have been happy to go straight to a motion.
Commissioner Brown.
I'm ready for a motion. I have no areas of concern. Thank you for your presentation.
Commissioner Marcantonis.
Mr. Zoni, just a question with the Gaming Control Board having some conditions attached to the application, and some of them, or at least two of them, applied to surveillance systems being maintained and put. And you are comfortable with that condition and how soon or effectively it can be implemented as we go forward?
Absolutely. And these are actually pretty standard on it. Anytime you do a transition like this, it's got to be maintained. And we're kind of at that time of year where we're putting our plans together anyway for each property in the state to get them to you guys. So we're in the process of doing that, and that'll be taken care of. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for that. Then I'm also ready to go for a motion. Thank you, Chair.
All right. At this time, I would call for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move for approval of non-restricted item number 3 is read into the record by Madam Secretary and is recommended by the Gaming Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion?
I just wanted to say that Mr. Alonso's July 17th, 2023 letter regarding Reg 3.070, the analysis there was just streamlined and very helpful. And for that reason, I just have no questions and I'll vote in favor. I have nothing else.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there were none opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Madam Secretary, could you please read in non-restricted number 4?
Non-restricted number 4 is the application of Dan Morphy Auctions LLC for licensure as a distributor and the application pursuant to Nevada Revised Statute 463.650 subsection 10 to exempt Daniel Edward Morphy, Paul Resnick, Benjamin Ebner Resnick, Thomas Albert Tolworthy, and PPK Investment Group LLC from the individual manager and member licensing requirements of Nevada Revised Statute 463.5735. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda.
Good morning.
Madam Chair, members of the commission and secretary, nice to see the board again. William Erga, the law firm of Jolly Erga, Woodbury and Holthus. Also present here is Mr. Tolworthy. We really don't have any presentation to make. This is kind of an unusual application, as I said, at the board level, and it was done when we did it about 5 or 6 years ago. It's a distributor license, but it's only to distribute machines that were constructed before 1961. So if you have any questions, we're here to answer the questions. But like I said before, we're not having it being distributed to casinos, bars, or anybody else. It's only the older machines, who he happens to be a collector of too. So,
Well, thank you for that. I think it's pretty straightforward. We'll open it up to any questions or comments.
Yeah, well, if I may, I was just completely fascinated by the whole discussion at the Gaming Control Board presentation and the fact that there is even such a large market in this very niche business. And may I ask, what kind of an inventory then do you have, for instance, right now that is available for members of the public or collectors or interest folks to? Do you carry a big inventory, or is this a very, very small niche market?
Well, for the record, my name is Thomas Tolworthy, Tom, and I'm the CEO of Dan Morphy Auctions LLC. The interesting thing about the auction business is that the inventory that we have comes and goes. We don't hold on to anything for generally any longer than 6 months. So we are provided inventory from individual collectors for the purpose of bringing that to market and selling it for them, for which we take a commission. So we don't own the pieces that we're selling. For the most part, we have been known to buy collections in the past when that was warranted out of an estate or something, but for generally, we don't own the slot machine. So at any one time, I've been with the company 4 years. We do approximately, I would say, between $2 and $4 million a year in what I would call antique gaming devices.
Wow.
And that would be each and every year. So right now in our facility here on Arville Street, there is there's $3.5 million worth of inventory, of which maybe 750,000 of that would be gaming devices, or maybe even a little bit more.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you, Jay.
I apologize for the interruption. You know, there's a mechanism on your phone where your kids can go through, bypass, and when they're living in another state and they're alone, you let them
Answer the phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, hopefully there's no emergency because this is very important. So I apologize for the interruption, sir. Commissioner Brown.
I have no areas of concern. I did want to thank the applicant for the full disclosure in connection with some background and history in 2000 and 1992. I appreciate that being on the record, and the disclosure gives me comfort that there aren't any issues here. And I do want to make sure on the record that the conditions regarding approval from the Gaming Control Board prior to a sale are acceptable to you.
100%.
Thank you. I have no areas of concern, and I did enjoy the presentation in front of the board. It was very thorough.
Commissioner Solis Rainey.
I don't have any questions. Thank you for being here.
Mr. Tolworthy, thank you for being here at NI too. It was a fascinating presentation last time. Still seeing new things, but this is a unique thing. So I'm not sure how often we'll see something like this. But and I think Mr. Marcantonis might need the address of your inventory. It looks like he's interested in going down. I do have a question, but I think it might be more appropriate for the Attorney General's office or Gaming Control Board experts. But the recommendation for condition number 2 with the regulation 14.170 and 14.180, a form must be submitted to the enforcement division for each purchase of a device. But if there's no response within 5 days, it's considered approved. In what situation would you not approve such a transaction? I'm not sure why it's a condition. I just don't understand.
I bet you know.
Well, there are 5 states that are illegal to ship slot machines to. And there are another 6 states that you can send any slot machine to, and every other state has some requirement as to its age. So based on the Nevada requirement of 1961, that fulfills the majority of the state's requirement to the age of the slot machine, with the exception of, say, the state of Vermont, where it needs to have been manufactured prior to 1954, and the state of, I think it's Georgia, where it had to have been manufactured prior to 1942. Those become a little bit more difficult in being able to date those because you have to go off the serial numbers, which every slot machine we sell in the state of Nevada needs to have its serial number on it. So back when we were here prior to 2019, we built into our software system capture mechanism, so that we have what many retailers would die for. We collect every sale by customer, individual, down to the individual item that they buy. And every slot machine, every gaming device that's in our system has a required field as to its serial number for that to be able to be put in there in order for us to sell it. So we have our own requirements built in to make sure that we can live up to what that requirement is in number 2.
A teachable moment. You're standing in the state of Nevada. Can't let you get away with that. But is it a condition? I'll look, and thank you for the answer. And I understand different jurisdictions have different rules, but is this actually a requirement that the Gaming Control Board enforces? It's necessary.
I would have to defer to enforcement on that, Commissioner.
I mean, it was more curiosity. I mean, I don't want it to stall what we're doing. I'm satisfied, and if you're okay, it's almost like you want that condition. I'm good as long as my friends on the Gaming Control Board think it's important and relevant and part of the responsibilities when you transact. That's it, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
No.
There being none, does anyone have a motion?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to move for approval of non-restricted item number 4 is recommended by the Gaming Control Board and is read into the record by Madam Secretary, including the conditions as set forth on the record.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. Thank you, sir, for being here
And
today.
I'd like to thank Agent Julian Schitzer. He's really been helpful in this. He did it in 18 and now he's doing it in 23. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, could you please read in non-restricted number 6?
Non-restricted number 6 is the application of Eclipse Route Operations LLC, doing business as Eclipse Gaming, doing business at Jackpot Joni's Casino for a non-restricted gaming license, slot machines only. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Judge, members of the Commission, Madam Executive Secretary, Board, JT Moran, Clark Hill, 1700 Pavilion Circle Center Drive. Finally got that right, by the way, representing Mr. Ronald Winchell on non-restricted number 6. We also appreciate your waiver, Judge, of his appearance
6.
today. He did appear at the Gaming Control Board. And then we also have 2 Class 1 locations that we're in the process of acquiring that will come before your tribunal in December, the Emerald Island and Rainbow Casinos out in the city of Henderson. On this particular item, just if I can share 3 quick things with you. Number 1, the gaming business is great. Mr. Winchell asked that I share that with you. Ron and I go back to us being children at Howard Wasden and Hyde Park Junior High.
Hyde Park.
We've known each other for a very, very long time.
Something tells me you were there later than I was.
And yeah, no, it's incredible. This was only like 50 years ago. 35 years ago.
Careful, kid.
This item just
We ask
became
that you
more
follow the recommendation of the Gaming Control Board and we'll stipulate to the conditions. No, so the gaming business has been great for Mr. Winchell. We now currently have 35 locations. This will be our 36th location. And as I indicated, the 2 non-restricteds in December that you'll see are Class 1 locations. We're really excited to bring those on board, and we have money earmarked to improve those properties along with this particular property out in Nye County. Nye County is a location that we feel has not been served by our client, is being served by other colleagues of ours in the gaming business. Sartini's out there, Herbst is out there, both doing a great job. And the marketplace out there, actually, if you look at the numbers, have been incredible. And there's many people moving out into that marketplace, and they're looking for good places to enjoy hospitality at that level, the same level that you would see with Sartini's properties, Herbst properties, and now obviously you're going to see with the Winchell brand and his intellectual property that he's been fine-tuning over the course of the last 25 years. The gaming business is great. The horse racing business is even better. We have horses in the Breeders' Cup coming up on November 3rd. So I hope you watch that race. Winchell Thoroughbreds is a staple in the racing industry on a global basis. I know Ron has a lot of fun with that, but he also has a lot of fun with his gaming, and he's very serious about his businesses. We also have gaming in New Hampshire and also in Kentucky with the HHR machines, which are pretty interesting as well, how those work and the algorithms behind that and whatnot. So that's fun. This location, we're looking at throwing probably $3 million towards this over a course of time. It's an existing Irene's location, and we're looking again at branding this our Jackpot Joni's, which is our signature IP brand. And we're going to add that high level, best in class food component to that location to serve that area and continue serving that area, which continues to grow. Again, Nye County, Pahrump. The last thing I wanted to share with you is the fact that this application out there is an interesting one for us. Because again, it's a marketplace that we have not tapped into, and we don't have any locations as of right now. But we are looking forward at again, improving the location and being a good steward of that particular ecosystem out in Pahrump, which again continues to grow. The final thing I'd like to leave you with is thanks to Agents Bartholomew and Agent Widmar, both best in class, brightest, super professional. It's always a pleasure dealing with them. They know the landscape, they know the players, they know the law. and they're just a delight to deal with. It's kind of like going before a judge that understands the law, and you have a pretty good idea if you're going to win or lose because they're going to follow the law. And in this case, these are two agents that are very black and white, did a great job on this investigation. They're also assigned to our Class 1 non-restricted location, expanded scope investigations for both Ron Winchell and his partner, business partner, Mark Falcone, who was formerly with Stations Casinos, as you probably all know as well. It's a pleasure being in front of you. Thank you for moving the calendar along quickly. And I'm here to ask for your support in following the recommendation and approval of the Gaming Control Board with the three conditions being stipulated to by my client today through me.
Thank you. Excellent. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns?
Mr. Moran, thank you for being here, and please wish Mr. Winchell all of the best in the Breeders' Cup. That is the pinnacle of the horse racing calendar. I've attended it for 10 years every year. Some people golf, I'll go to that thing. So we wish you all of the best, but I was very satisfied with the presentation you both made at the Nevada Gaming Control Board. And I have no further questions. I wish you luck with this application, but I will not hesitate to support it. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Brown?
Welcome. Good to see you. When I was watching the presentation before the board, I understood that the project was still in the design process and is set to commence construction in 6 months. Is that still on schedule?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then also I was looking at the pre-opening cash statement for Eclipse that indicated a $375,000 line item for total property expenditures. Does that relate to the amount budgeted for renovations, or is that something else?
Amount budgeted for renovation. That's
Okay, good.
exactly right.
Yep. I was guessing and I just wanted confirmation. And that's all I have for you. I have no other questions.
Are you
Good to
sure?
see you. I'm positive.
Okay.
No
thank
areas
you.
of concern.
Thank you.
I'll come up with more if you want. I have one more.
No. Less is more. Less
Okay,
is
good.
more.
Commissioner Krolicki or Solus Rainey, any questions or comments?
I don't have anything. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Commissioner.
Mr. Moran, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Lieutenant Governor.
For being here and being concise in the presentation, despite the side to the chair, is a perfect presentation. No, I have no comments other than I'm an individual who spent much time in Pahrump, and $3 million working capital is significant for certainly Pahrump and absolutely Nye County. So I think that's all well, and wish you all the best. And yeah, Mr. Winchell's presentation, and I certainly have acquaintances who are, own racehorses, but they're hobbies that are very expensive. For him to have 150 horses, I believe, thoroughbreds.
Yes, actually, I think we're in the 200s.
I think there's 50 in training and 150 racing. Isn't that what he said?
I knew I had 150%.
I was going to say, I'm not going to correct you, Your Honor. That's for sure.
Wish him well and the Breeders' Cup, but again, I'm perfectly comfortable with the application. Wish you all the best.
Keep an eye on Gunite in the Breeders' Cup on November 3rd.
Is it in the-
I can't tell you to make a wager on that, by
Yeah.
the way, Lieutenant Governor.
We're restricted from.
Yeah, I don't think we're allowed to listen to that, are we?
Thanks for the
We
tip.
get an opinion by the general.
Watching.
Big fat ethical violation, but thank you.
You're going to have to scratch the horse now.
All right, is there anything else, or does someone have a motion?
I'll move a motion.
Okay,
Okay, Madam Chair, I move for approval of non-restricted item number 6 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and as recommended by the Nevada Gaming Control Board and with the conditions as shown on the agenda. Thank you.
any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Nice to see you all.
Nice
Yeah.
to see you. Thank you.
All right.
Madam Secretary, could you please read in non-restricted number 7?
Non-restricted number 7 is the application of Nevada Restaurant Services, Inc., doing business as Points Casino number 211 for a non-restricted gaming license, slot machines only. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda.
Good morning, Chair Tagliati,
Good morning.
members of the commission, Madam Secretary, board members. My name is Cannon Smith and I'm General Counsel for Nevada Restaurant Services, Inc. And I'm before you today on NRSI's application for Points Casino number 211. As I did at the board meeting, I'd really like to extend a thanks to the investigations division of the board. This location is a non-conforming use under Clark County's code, and therefore we had to do a number of one-day openings in order to keep the entitlements alive. And I'm happy to announce that this should be the last time we would be in front of you. Should we get approval, and we should be opening on November 20th. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Fairly straightforward. There being none, does anyone have a motion they wish to make?
Sure. I move for approval of non-restricted item number 7 as recommended by the Gaming Control Board and is read into the record by Madam Secretary.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, that brings us to restricted items held out for discussion. If you could please read in, Madam Secretary, restricted number 1.
Restricted number 1 is the application of the Beach House Las Vegas LLC doing business as the Beach House Las Vegas for a restricted gaming license and the application of Jonah Souza for licensure as a member and manager. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda. I believe we have a recusal on this item.
Yes, thank you. My husband, David Brown, represents the applicant, so I'll be recusing myself. Good luck.
Hello.
Hello, good morning still. David Brown on behalf of the applicant, Jonah Souza, who's with me today, is for Beach House LLC. This is an existing tavern. He would like to take over. He's in agreement with both conditions. Mr. Souza just completed the compliance seminar this week. He provided agent Martirosian, who was a pleasure to deal with, and we're very grateful for her time and assistance on this application. A copy of the letter showing the completion of that seminar. He's also executing an agreement with a slot route operator for a 5-year period to start. Happy to answer any questions if you have it.
I always like to ask, what did you think of the seminar? Can you step forward?
Hello. Again, I'm Jonah Souza. Seminar was very helpful. Also got the notes at the end to print out, and just in case I got to go back, but it was good. Learned a lot, coming from Hawaii, we're a small dot, so I am ready to learn and ready to get to work here. But yeah, very helpful.
Well, thank you for being here today. I'm going to open it up for any questions or comments of my colleagues, starting with Commissioner Krolicki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Brown, welcome. It's a pleasure to see you, to meet you. Mr. Souza, welcome. I have no concerns or questions. I think this is all very straightforward, and I just wish you the very best. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I don't have any questions either. It was well documented, and all my questions have been answered. Thank you.
And the same applies to me. Good luck.
I would simply say after that seminar, and if you have any questions, obviously you have, when in doubt, go to your person, right? Because it's one of those things where this is not an easy, we have very high expectations, and we are, if you're going to have the privilege, then we have the highest expectations. So it sounds to me like you already have his number on speed dial.
Oh, speed dial, yes.
Speed dial. Okay. Well, that's awesome. At this point, I don't have any additional questions or comments. I support your application, and so I just need a motion.
Madam Chair, I would move for approval of restricted item number 1 as read into the record with conditions by Madam Secretary and recommended by approval by the Gaming Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are none opposed. The record should reflect Commissioner Brown did not vote on this matter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Could we ask? There we go. Madam Secretary, could you please read in restricted number 2?
Restricted number 2 is the application of A&P Management LLC doing business as Jimmy G's Cigar Bar for a restricted gaming license, and the applications of Brandy Orlick and Aaron Orlick for licensure as a member and manager. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda.
Okay, good morning. I have you here in Carson. And thank you for being present and appearing there. Did you have an affirmative comments or presentation you wish to make, or would you prefer that we just, if any of us have any questions?
We did complete the compliance seminar earlier this week, so that has been met.
Did you get any tips on Hawaiian business options? How many people were at the seminar? How many people were there?
I think it was like 20 some. if I
Okay.
remember correctly.
And what did you think?
It was very helpful, still insightful. You learn a lot through the process.
Well, it's good to hear. So did you have anything else that you wish to say before I open it up to my colleagues if they have questions for you?
No.
Nope.
Okay. I'll start with Commissioner Mark Jonas.
Well, very straightforward, and thank you for having completed the condition as our previous applicant. So I'm very happy to support the application at this point, Chair.
Commissioner Brown.
If you could just spend about a minute for each of you just to tell us about yourselves, since you're new to me and I just wanted to hear from you and how you got involved in this venture. I would love to give you the opportunity since you've been waiting.
So I myself, I had been an arborist for 17 years here in Carson City. I've lived here all my life. Unfortunately, doing tree work for 17 years has taken a toll on my body, so I had to do something else. So I started working with the previous owner, Susan. I worked with her for 2 years as kind of managing everything, and then I got the opportunity to purchase it from her. So I kind of took that as my opportunity to get out of the labor force as heavily as I was in it now.
And how are you enjoying it? Not being outside all the time, being indoors.
I'm still outside a lot, but I definitely enjoy having something other than snow removal to rely on during the winter. So now I don't have to do that as much. That was a kind of a strenuous thing. Get up at 1 a.m, usually don't go to bed till 5 a.m. the next day. So I'm pretty happy to do that.
That sounds like a much better schedule now. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you.
And then I was in, oh, sorry. Did you still want me to
Go
go
ahead.
ahead?
Yes,
Okay.
of course. I didn't mean to cut Commissioner Brown's question off for you. My bad.
Oh, no, no problem at all. I was in medical billing previously and then got into real estate, and I've always helped my husband Aaron with his businesses as well. So as he's always been a good front face for every business and very hardworking at that. He's not so good at paperwork. So that's usually where I help with everything. That's why we make such a good team. And, like he said, he knew the previous owner. So we had spent a lot of time with her. And when she gave us this opportunity, we took it without hesitation.
Well, it sounds very exciting, and I'm happy for the new venture and the new chapter in your lives. So I have no areas of concern. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Well, we thank you for your patience and being here today to speak to us. I think we have support for your application. So at this time, I would call for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move for approval of restricted item number 2. I'm sorry, my numbers are all messed up today. Number 2 is read into the record by Madam Secretary and is recommended by the Game Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion? Nope. There being no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are none opposed. The only thing I was remiss in saying is I would say the same to you as I did to the previous applicant, which is if you ever have any questions or concerns, don't guess. And I'm sure I can see you on the screen, and I know you've been sitting through this entire meeting. So I'm not going to belabor the point because I'm sure you heard what I said to the previous applicant. But thank you again for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think I see that they're opening on Nevada Day weekend. Is that true?
Are you opening on Nevada Day?
Yes, tomorrow, since we were able to get your approval.
Oh, okay.
Battleborn. Happy birthday, Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Secretary, if we could please read in restricted number 3.
Restricted number 3 is the application of Nevada Restaurant Services, Inc., doing business as Dottie's number 213 for a restricted gaming license. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda.
Good morning again, Chair Tagliati,
Hi.
Commissioners, Madam Secretary, members of the board. My name is Cannon Smith, and I'm General Counsel for Nevada Restaurant Services, Inc. the applicant today. I'm before you on restricted item 3, which is the application for Dottie's number 213. The location would be operated at 9570 West Sky Canyon Park Drive, suites 140, 150, and 160. We'd like to thank Agent Marta Rosen for her work on this application, and I'm happy to answer any questions the commission might have.
Well, first, I would comment before I ask my colleagues for any questions or comments, how much I appreciated the whole discussion about incidental at the board meeting. It was very insightful and helpful. You know, I think the chair, Hendrik, made a comment like, oh, it's, you know, it's so straightforward. But actually, the way he summed it up, you know, if it meets all the requirements, right, versus then there's a weighing. And so I get the criticisms of it because of the language, and I don't dispute the judge's characterization about, you know, how much we want specific meaning to a word, but loved hearing from you on that virtually while I was watching. So I'm going to open it up for any questions or comments.
Well, I too was so impressed, Mr. Smith. Obviously, I'm not, as you may know, a legal scholar, but when I came out of that session, I thought I may have just covered 6 months of law school. Well done. Impressive.
Thank you.
So you're going to take the bar exam in February?
Just 6 months. I said I couldn't do the rest of it.
I was going to wish you good luck. Commissioner Brown.
Excellent presentation. I also noted for the record, there's about $1 million reserved from the excess cash to remodel and for the startup costs. So that sounds like a robust budget that's ready. So I have absolutely no areas of concern, and I enjoyed your presentation as well. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Solis Rainey.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
I too enjoyed the presentation, Mr. Smith. No questions, comments, happy to support.
Thank you.
All right. Do one of my colleagues have a motion? Commissioner Marcantonus.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I move for approval of restricted item number 3 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and as recommended by the Gaming Control Board. With the conditions as shown on the agenda.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. And there are none opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. All right, I've asked Madam Secretary to please read in because we're going to call both restricted number 4 and restricted number 5 at the same time.
Restricted number 4 is the application of DeSimone Gaming, Inc., doing business as Eldorado Pass Travel Center for a restricted gaming license and for a waiver of the requirement of Nevada Gaming Commission Regulation 3.015, subsection 3, subsection B, as noted on the agenda. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda. Restricted number 5 is the application of DeSimone Gaming, Inc., doing business as Bullet Train for a restricted gaming license. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval with conditions as noted on the agenda.
Welcome back.
Good morning still. Chair, Commissioners, Madam Secretary, Sonia Vermees from the law firm Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck on behalf of the applicants. As read into the record, the company is DeSimone Gaming, Inc. Here this morning is the sole owner, officer, and director, Joseph DeSimone. His chief financial officer, Chris Reese, is also in the audience. DeSimone Gaming, Inc. is currently licensed at the Railroad Pass Travel Center, and the Pass at Water Street. He's now adding these 2 restricted locations. One will be the Eldorado Pass Travel Center on the other side of the highway, and adjacent to the Railroad Pass will be a new tavern, the Bullet Train Tavern. We went through all of the 3015 requirements and the request for a waiver, but if there's anything else on that you'd like us to discuss today, happy to do that. Otherwise, we're happy to just answer questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would like to open it up for any questions or comments. I'll start with Commissioner Solis Rainey. Do you have anything?
I don't. I was satisfied with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marcantonus.
I too was satisfied at the NGC. Thank you.
Commissioner Brown.
Just quickly wanted to verify in terms of the 50-hour work week, how much time is going to be devoted to each space?
Do you want to address that, Mr. DeSimone?
Mr. DeSimone, welcome.
Thank you, Joseph DeSimone. Madam Commissioner, Commissioners. We expect to continue to spend about 55% of my time on gaming, specifically gaming, not including the time I spend there casually.
And then, but they're two separate locations, correct? For items
Yes,
number 4 and 5 before us today?
yes, they're right across the street from one another, the highway.
Yes. So you'll just split your time evenly between those two, or are you spending more time in one versus the other?
Well, the railroad pass, where's my non-restricted license is also on the same property. So my office is there. So I'll be at all 3 locations.
Excellent. So that's nice and convenient for you. So you're not running around. Thank you. I like the name Bullet Train too, by the way. That was very clever.
Playing off the railroad pass.
Yep.
You just need a tunnel.
Uh-huh.
Run back and forth.
I'll do that.
Commissioner Krolicki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. DeSimone, welcome. Ms. Vermees. It's on item number 5, but just because you're standing there, the bankroll, you're familiar with the requirements and accept those requirements?
Yes, sir. Yes, Commissioner.
That's it. Thank you.
I would also comment that the incidental conversation at the board meeting was, illustrative for at least me. I don't mean to speak for my colleagues, but I just think it's important when we're looking at that, because that's come up before us and it's kind of a gray area, and it's pretty not gray when it comes to your business. So we appreciate just having the record on that before the board. And obviously I support your applications on both restricted number 4 and 5. And unless there's any additional questions or comments, I would call for a motion on those 2 items.
Chair, I move for approval of restricted number 4 and restricted number 5 is recommended by the Gaming Control Board and is read into the record by Madam Secretary.
And that would include conditions noted on the agenda for each item?
Yes, and including any conditions for each of the items as set forth on the agenda.
Any discussion on the motion?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are none opposed. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Madam Secretary, could you please read in restricted number 7?
Restricted number 7 are the applications of Tivoli Pub LLC for a transfer of interest as noted on the agenda, and the application of Suburban Restaurants LLC for licensure as a member as noted on the agenda. It is also the application by Daniel Wedge to pledge membership interest as noted on the agenda, and the recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval.
Good morning still.
Good morning, commissioners. I thought we would be here till afternoon, so I'm happy it's still the morning. Brianna Martinez from the law firm Kemford Kroll on behalf of the applicants. I have with me Mr. Adam Corrigan and Daniel Wedge. There are several transfers on the agenda for today. The first one is the Adam B. Corrigan Gaming Trust transferring 100% of its interest to Suburban Restaurants LLC, and the trust will hold 100% interest of Suburban Restaurants LLC. The second transfer is transfer from Suburban Restaurants LLC 5% to Daniel Wedge as a minority interest holder. This is evidenced by the membership agreement, the promissory note, and the pledge. And we would like to thank Agent Jeffries for all her assistance on this. And we would ask that you approve these transfers, and we are available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Corrigan. Welcome back.
Morning.
It's like there's no frequent flyer points for your appearances, but we're glad to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
I think it's pretty straightforward, but I'm going to open it up for any questions or comments. Again, I appreciate you being here. I never know, because of open meeting laws, who's going to have questions.
Of course.
So
Happy to be here.
thank you.
Happy to be here.
Commissioner Marcantonus.
Yes, if I just add some commentary to Chair Hendrick's comments at the Nevada Gaming Control Board meeting, and what a great story this is. What a great opportunity. And it does show a lot of trust between an ownership and some of the people that helped the ownership achieve its heights. So congratulations. This is such a good story and very supportive, and wish you all the best going forward. Thank you.
Commissioner Brown.
I concur. I loved watching the presentation in front of the board, and sounds like an excellent opportunity. And because of dedication and hard work, I think that's how these opportunities arise. So congratulations.
I also don't have any concerns with the application, and I really appreciate you giving a valued employee, the opportunity to gain an ownership interest in this manner. So Thank you for that and good luck.
Commissioner Kralik.
A 0% interest rate, which is even better. No questions or concerns. I'm perfectly comfortable and I support.
All right. With that, does anyone have a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of restricted item number 7 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and as recommended by the Gaming Control Board.
Right. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are none opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great weekend.
We have the next agenda item.
Yes. If you could please read in restricted number 8, Madam Secretary.
Restricted number 8 are the applications of Vista Commons Investment LLC for transfer of interest in the application of Suburban Restaurants LLC for licensure as a member as noted on the agenda. You also have the application by Daniel Wedge to pledge membership interest as noted on the agenda, and the recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval.
Thanks for
Morning,
being here.
Commissioners.
Do you have anything you want to say or submit to questions and comments?
We submit.
Okay. Any questions or comments on this agenda item?
I very rarely see, I represent banks sometimes, I'm an attorney, and I very rarely see loan conditions that are this favorable. I mean, to have debt forgiveness after 5 years for the $125,000 is such a cool deal and such a great opportunity. Of course, you have to be dedicated, non-compete, and continue to work there. And to me, that is incentive enough to flourish and thrive. And it's just a very creative way to incentivize people to be dedicated and loyal and stick with it. So I can't wait to see what happens in 5 years. I'm sure you'll still be there and doing well. So just great to see terms like these. It's not something I see every day.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? There being none, do one of my colleagues have a motion?
Yes, I move for approval of restricted item number 8 as read into the record by Madam Secretary and is recommended by the Gaming Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are none opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, could you please read in restricted number 10?
Restricted number 10 is the application of Sartini Gaming LLC doing business at 7-Eleven store number 41724 for restricted gaming license. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval.
Good morning still.
Good morning. Is it? Good
Yes, it
morning
is.
still. I'm looking for the frequent flyer points. I am Phyllis Gilland, representing Sartini Gaming in the application for the 7-Eleven number 41724 in the city of Reno, Nevada. And as you have previously, I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. We appreciate your patience and being here today. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues who, if they have any questions or comments.
I was satisfied with the NGC meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Perlicki, anything?
I too was very comfortable in watching the Gaming Control Board meeting. I'm ready to proceed.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Solis. Commissioner Brown.
If I just may briefly, thank you for coming and waiting. I appreciate it. So the vicinity between the location and the church is 0.1 miles. Very close.
No, you know what? I apologize. I don't know what it is in decimals, but it is,
The material said it's approximately 0.1.
okay.
And so I just wanted to make sure, since I watched the presentation before the board, a representation was made that nobody from the City of Reno Planning Department had any issues with the proximity with the
No.
church. Has anything changed?
No, as a matter of fact, we spoke with the department yesterday and notices went out in 2021. The liquor license was January of 23. There haven't been any complaints from the city, and I have that in an email.
And were you able to obtain a statement from the church regarding the proposed location?
Yes, we did speak with the church this week. The church did receive those notices and is, I would say, not extremely happy with the liquor license, which came out in January of 23, and obviously with the gaming. But they are across a 4-lane highway, Military Highway, Lemon Highway, and it is in a commercial zoned corridor. I've double checked, and it is across those highways, busy highways, and directly north of Highway 395, and it's all zoned commercial. So they just recently got back to us and don't like the liquor, don't like the, so.
With whom did you speak? Was it
The
you directly?
pastor.
Okay. And can you explain why there was a delay in the response? Because I know that there
I
was an
believe it was
attempt
on
to
their
elicit.
part. We did reach out. I have Jennifer Madole, who's our Director of Route Operations in the North. And they did reach out to this church, I guess about 5 times.
And how was that?
Pardon me?
How was that attempted? By email or?
Phone. She stopped by, knocked on the door.
All right.
So we're
And so
just now
prior to
hearing back.
those telephone calls, were messages left with the school?
Jennifer?
I mean, with the
Us,
church?
with the church.
The church, yes.
We were unable to leave any messages multiple times. The phone just rang, and there was no voicemail to even leave a message on.
She did
on
stop
many of
by
the
and knock on the
attempts.
doors.
And were there any emails or letters that were disseminated in an effort to obtain a response in connection with this application?
We did not have an email address, and there was not one that we could find that was active, but we did not send anything in writing.
And with whom, do you have a name of the person with whom you spoke?
Jennifer?
Yes, David Baggett.
And if you could maybe for the record, because it's not in my materials, provide me with some detail and specificity about the discussion and the comments that were made for the record, please.
So I had to leave my contact information. We were really attempting to contact somebody there. And I had a friend who knew somebody at a different LDS church. And I had asked her if she knew anybody, because on the website, it says that there's office hours. So we attempted during the office hours to get to speak with somebody and were unsuccessful. So I gave her my cell phone number. She gave it to Mr. Baggett and he called me.
And could you please tell me in some detail about the conversation for the record, please?
So I just represented who I was, that I worked for Golden Entertainment and that we were working with the franchisee to install some gaming machines in his store, which would basically replace the games that were at his store previously. He had a store that was just up the road, less than a couple miles, that 7-Eleven corporate actually closed and they built him a new store. So it was just moving down the street. And just wanted to let him know that, or make him aware that we were going to be installing the machines.
And what was his response?
He said he was not happy. He said morally, he just did not approve of liquor or gaming.
Okay, well, thank you for putting that on the record. I just wanted that detail because it wasn't in our materials because you weren't able to elicit a response until this week. So thank you for that statement, and I have no other questions.
So just so that we're clear, you have no knowledge that the authorities of this particular church showed up at the city or wrote any objection letters to the city before the license was granted almost a year ago. Is that correct?
I have no knowledge, but I did verify that the notices went out to the community. It's in a special use district because it's right next to homes, apartments. So that was required. The city required those to go out.
I would assume that that city is like every other city that requires such a thing.
And I did verify that those went out.
So so you have no knowledge that there was anyone that objected to the city, showed up at any kind of hearing, did any kind of writing of an objection?
No, the city did not impart that there were any notices like that to us.
But if they did do that and we just don't know about it, the city still approved the license?
Yes, the city approved the license.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions or comments?
And was the pastor notified that there would be a meeting today to consider this application and that he would have the opportunity to speak and make a public comment if he so chose?
Jennifer, did you?
No, I did not have that conversation with him.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? No. All right. Thank you very much for being here. Also up in the north, we appreciate it so that you could answer our questions. Thank you. At this time, does anyone have a motion?
Sure, I move for approval of restricted item number 10 as recommended by the Gaming Control Board and as read into the record by Madam Secretary.
Any discussion on the motion? No. There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and there are none opposed. Thank you.
Appreciate it. The next one as well.
Yes. Madam Secretary, could you please read in restricted number 11?
Restricted number 11 is the application of Sartini Gaming LLC doing business at the Tap Shack for a restricted gaming license. The recommendation of the Gaming Control Board is for approval.
Again, Phyllis Gilland for Sartini Gaming, in regards to the space lease application for the Tap Shack located in Carson City, Nevada. And we're available for any questions.
Good morning or afternoon. Oh, it's afternoon. I don't have any questions on this item. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues at this time.
Nor I.
May I ask a question, Chair?
I have no questions either, Chair.
May I ask a question?
Of course.
Oh, thank you. Welcome again.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. It's been too long. So I do understand from the materials that we've received that the school's principal reported the school's administration has no issues with the proximity. And I thought this one was also 0.1 miles away, and that the church hasn't responded, and that Carson City Planning Division in the city has no issues with the proximity to the church. Since the board hearing, have you received any response from the church? And this is Potter's House Christian Fellowship, I believe.
Jennifer and Amy, I think we had spoken with the church, had we not? Yes.
Correct.
We
yes.
we had spoken with the church.
If you could please state your
prior to
name
the
for
board.
if you could please state your full name for the record and then just provide us with the details of the conversation, please. Thank you.
Sure. My name
Go
is
ahead,
Jennifer Madole, and I'm the Director of Northern Nevada Route Operations.
And go ahead, you can answer in regards to having spoken with the church. Oh, go ahead, Amy, please introduce yourself.
My name's Amanda Thiessen, and I am a Northern Route account rep and marketing manager. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming.
It was, if it's the business owner is actually who had the conversation with the pastor of the Potter's House. I did not directly speak with them, but there was an email sent back to them from Potter's House, which I believe happened prior to the board meeting.
And what was the response?
They had no objection.
Thank you so much for putting that on the record. I have no other questions for you and no areas of concern. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
If I might just address my colleague's questioning. I'm very familiar with this neighborhood. I've had more hamburgers at the Cracker Box than I will confess to, but I don't know what the distance is, but I don't think they're that close. You've got Stewart Street in between, so I really, I'm comfortable. They expressed no discomfort, so I'm fine.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Do any of my colleagues have a motion?
I move for approval of restricted item number 11, as read into the record by Madam Secretary and is recommended by the Gaming Control Board.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are none opposed. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies, for being here today. We appreciate you.
We thank
you
Agent
for-
T2 as well. She handled both of these. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I was going to call the next matter before we take a comfort break. So we'll do the next matter, then we'll take a comfort break briefly, and then we'll be back. So at this time, Madam Secretary, if that concludes our items held out for discussion, if you could read in the next item.
Next, for your consideration, you have a stipulation for settlement and order settling the complaint filed in the matter of the Nevada Gaming Control Board versus Leeds Incorporated doing business as P&L Launderland, Leeds Incorporated doing business as Wash Tubs Coin Laundry, Kevin Michael Lead and Janet Arlene Wells, case number 23-02.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the commission.
You're disappointed I didn't call this at 3 o'clock. I know, you look devastated.
I was waiting for it to be the last thing on the day when there'd be nobody here. No. And Madam Secretary, for the record, my name is Ed McGaw, and I am with the Attorney General's office here today representing the Nevada Gaming Control Board. And with me here today is Scott Shear. He's representing, I'll let him explain.
Yeah. Again, Scott Shear of Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schruck. Good afternoon. Appearing on behalf of the respondents, Leeds Inc. and Janet Wells and Kevin Lead, who are in Carson City. And thank you for granting them the waiver to allow them to appear in Carson.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here in case there are any questions. At this time, if you would just kind of lay it out for us real quick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before you today is a stipulation for settlement that resolves the disciplinary complaint filed by the board against the licensees read into the record by Madam Secretary. The complaint contains 3 counts which stem from 2 main violations. Count 1 addresses the licensee's failure to timely notify the board of the passing of a shareholder. And counts 2 and 3 address the payment of consideration to respondent Wells for the disposition of her interest in Leeds Incorporated prior to receiving commission approval. Through settlement discussions with the board, the licensees have agreed to pay a fine of $2,000. This is consistent with the settlements of similar violations recently. The board believes that this is a reasonable fine based on the totality of the circumstances involved. The board asks that the commission accept the stipulation for settlement as presented. Before I conclude my presentation, however, I have to point out some typographical errors that were in the complaint that I discovered. These are non-substantive and they are cross-references within the complaint that were not updated when the complaint was edited. And if it's okay with Mr. Scheer, I think that this matter can move forward with just making a record of those changes. Okay. If you look at the complaint on page 6 of 10 in paragraph 28, the paragraph refers to paragraph 25 and 26. 30 and 31. It should say 25 and 26. In paragraph 29, there's a reference to paragraph 33. It should say paragraph 28. Further down in that same paragraph, there's a reference to paragraph 30 and 31. It should say 25 and 26. In paragraph 30, there is a reference to paragraph 30 and 31. It should say paragraphs 25 and 26. And on page 7 of 10, in paragraph 36, there's a reference to paragraph 40. It should say paragraph 35. And on page 8 of 10, in paragraph 38, there's a reference to paragraph 42, and it should say 37. And lastly, in paragraph 41 on that page, there's a reference to paragraph 45 that should be paragraph 40.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Just no objection to those changes.
Thank you.
And I apologize for oversight on my part. With that, I conclude my affirmative presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions commissioners may have.
Mr. Scherer, do you have anything you wish to add?
Just very briefly, did want to say that the company was represented by counsel. There are some ambiguities between Reg 9 and Reg 8 that I think led to some misunderstandings. Nevertheless, Mr. Lead understands that as the licensee, he's ultimately responsible and he accepts that responsibility and so agrees with the stipulation.
Thank you. Do I have any comments or questions from?
Just a quick comment.
Okay.
Mr. Scheer, respectfully, one of the issues, I remember this well when it came before us previously. And one of the things that to me seemed more egregious is that even after they were advised by the board that this money had to be put into escrow and that they couldn't continue making payments until they received commission approval, they didn't put it in escrow and they continued to make payments. So I understand disagreements and misunderstandings can happen, but I don't believe this was one of those.
Yeah, if I might address that in particular, they were notified in January. The February payment was made, but then Ms. Wells repaid the February payment when they became aware that this was an issue. And so that payment wasn't, so there's only one payment made after they became aware or were made aware by the agent. Ms. Wells did repay that until after the approval was granted.
I don't recall her having repaid it at the time of the commission meeting. My timing could be off, but it seemed pretty clear. And he seemed to understand that he shouldn't have made it, but they were trying to keep family peace, which I also understand. But regulations and our statutes have to trump family peace in certain circumstances.
Understood. As I said, there are some ambiguities. The Reg 9 talks about a co-licensee, which Ms. Wells was. So I think there was some confusion there, but clearly Reg 8 ultimately controls this disposition. So as I say, Mr. Lead accepts that responsibility.
Commissioner Krolicki?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate that remediation was made. This item was before my time. And I just, I'm sorry for your loss. And this is government coming in, doing what it's supposed to and what we have to, but certainly during an awkward time. And I can't apologize because again, we are doing what must be done but appreciate your agreement to the stipulation. And my other question was to Senior Deputy Attorney General McGaw, but you've already answered it. Just if that $2,000 amount is commensurate with other items, it's my recollection that it is in that same neighborhood. So I have no comments or questions other than what I've just made.
Anyone else?
Nothing further from me. Thank you.
The settlement amount of 2,000 seems abundantly reasonable and I have no issues with it. Thank you for bringing this to us in a settlement. That's my preference in instances like this.
Thank you. At this time, do any of my colleagues have a motion?
Chair, I move for approval of the stipulation settlement in order to be executed by Chair Tagliati pursuant to the complaint on file in this matter.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
And there are none opposed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wu, it's
Thank-
been 2 hours and 15 minutes. We have to take a comfort break, but you're going to be the first one called when we get back. You're next on the agenda. Thank you. Okay, we're back on the record. On the record to reflect that we have moved to the next agenda item. Madam Secretary, if you could please read that into the record.
Next for your consideration is one gaming employee registration appeal. That item is Maddie Wu, case number 22 LV 06481.
Hello, Mr. Wu, welcome. Before we begin, I'd like to kind of give you a little roadmap, if you will, procedurally on how this works. First of all, we, the commission members, have the full record of what occurred prior to your appeal to get to this point. So what I mean by that is the transcript of the hearing, before the hearing, commissioner, the hearing officer, excuse me, your email, and the order itself, those kinds of things. So we've already reviewed that before you get here. And so one thing you should be distinctly aware of, if you know this already, then I apologize for repeating it, but we as a commission are limited to the record before us. So you can't bring anything new that isn't part of this record or that you didn't present at the hearing or any written materials prior to today. And the only other thing I would ask is, there's a study that says people who curse are very intelligent. I've read this study like 5 times, and I read your transcript, and I'm sure you're a very smart guy, but out of respect for this proceeding, I will expect you to refrain from using any profanities, okay? I don't hold it against you because I've read the study, but just be mindful of that if you don't mind. And I would, so you will present to us your arguments and the position you wish to take. Then we will ask you any questions and make any comments. There'll be this part where we will ask questions if it's deemed appropriate by anyone. And then there'll be this other part, and I'll tell you when that is, where we have a discussion prior to a vote that is not a participatory event for you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Before we start, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. And also, hopefully you understand why I didn't have you do this in public comment, because you would have been restricted to 3 minutes, and you have this time where you are not restricted.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so when you're ready.
Good afternoon. Woo! So what I'd like to do is bring attention or focus of the hearing to the reason that my license was denied or suspended. And it was because I supposedly lied about my criminal record, which I did not at all. There was misinformation given to me, which I posted in, there's a document in there. And what the document is I went to the courthouse when I was going to fill out my application and said, here's my ID. I need to know everything that's on my record, because I had no idea if there was anything on my record or not. They said, there's nothing on your record. I go, oh, okay, thank you. Can you print that out? So they printed out a sheet saying there was nothing on my record. So I filled out my application with nothing on my record. And then I got my license, dealt at the World Series of Poker, which was incredible. And then my license got suspended because supposedly I was dishonest about something on my application about saying there was nothing on my record. So I went back to and they sent me a letter saying there was 2 charges, not convictions, charges that I missed. I didn't list. So I took it back to the courthouse, said, I need to know everything on my record. And they said, there's nothing on your record. And I said, okay. The Gaming Commission says these are on my record. And I showed them the dates, and they looked them up and they said, no, there's nothing on your record. And I go, okay. So I went to the hearing. And at the hearing was the first time I actually got to see what the charges were against me. One was from 10 years ago, and it was a mistake, and it was dismissed immediately, and nothing was on my record. And I totally forgot about that because there was nothing on my record for it, and I blew it off right away. And I didn't know that was on there at all. The second one was a citizen's arrest, which was my roommate, which was total BS. And I went to jail for the evening, and then they released me. I was never in a cell. I never saw a judge, and it was dismissed right away. So I figured when the
the courthouse told me there was nothing on my record, that it never got filed as anything. So I didn't know what it was. So there was a mistake made, but it was not by me. It was by the courthouse misinforming me there was nothing in my record, because if they would have told me what was on my record, I would have listed it in a second. So I did not lie or hold back or anything. As I was saying, they're not convictions anyway. They were just charges which were dismissed right away. So I did not lie or hold back information. I was just misinformed by the courthouse. So I just wanted that to be brought into the hearing.
One second. I think you alluded to these efforts in the hearing. And so if you don't have any additional affirmative presentation, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions and comments and I don't know if anybody wants to start. Commissioner Brown? Okay, Commissioner Brown's going to start.
Sure.
Welcome and thank you for waiting. I appreciate your time and your patience today. I reviewed all of the materials and I was looking at the question that was posed to you in your application and the gaming employee registration application. And the question is this, and I'm going to read it to you carefully. Have you at any time been arrested, indicted, received a citation, or been ordered to appear in court for any criminal offense during the past 10 years? So when I read that question, it seems to me that you don't have any issues recollecting what occurred for either of the two events that resulted in the arrest. Is that accurate? There's no lapse in memory. You know that happened, correct?
The one 10 years ago, I had no idea. I totally spaced that off. The one that just happened, I didn't even know what it was, because it was my roommate saying I did something which I didn't. So they took me to jail and held me there and then released me. I never saw a judge, so I didn't know what even that was. That's why I went to the courthouse to make sure I knew everything that was on my record to list. They said nothing. I was like, okay, I guess there was nothing for
You
that.
keep saying on the record, but I'm asking you for your personal recollection of what happened on October 18th, 2013, which was not over 10 years ago. It was yesterday, it was 10 years ago. You were arrested at that time, yes or no?
Yes.
And is it your testimony today that you don't remember being arrested 10 years ago with the altercation at UNLV with your
No, I did not.
ex-girlfriend roommate? Absolutely no recollection?
No.
Okay. And is it your testimony today that you do have recollection of the event that transpired with your roommate, notwithstanding the fact that you say the arrest on March 13th, 2022 arose from bogus allegations about a fake stabbing with your roommate who was trying to set you up? I understand all of that. But you do remember the arrest, yes or no?
I do remember that.
So there was an arrest?
Well, that's what I didn't understand, because they took me to the
It's a
court.
yes or no question. Were you arrested?
I assume yeah, I think so.
Yes or no, were you arrested?
Yes.
Okay, and so that's why I have trouble under NRS 463, 335, subsection 12, A, C, and D, failure to disclose two arrests. So if you forgot the one that happened exactly 10 years ago, I mean, do you remember the event that transpired with your ex-girlfriend slash
After I was
roommate?
at the hearing and they reminded me of it, I thought back and then I recalled it, yes.
So you do concede, as you stand here today, that you were in fact arrested and you did speak to a judge, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so that was just a failure to disclose, but the most recent one was also an arrest and that was also a failure to disclose. So when you couple the two of them together, that gives me concern that you did not disclose actual arrests, regardless of whether you were guilty, whether there was a citation, whether the judge dismissed it, which I understand the judge dismissed the matter with your former roommate back in October 18th, 2013, relating to that arrest. But the question simply is, have you ever been arrested? And as I sit here listening to you and as I review the record before me, the answer is yes. You just said, yes, you were arrested, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't have any more questions for you, and I'm constrained by the record that's before me, and I'm a strict constructionist. When I read that question, have you ever been arrested? The answer to me is simple. It doesn't say, do you have any record? It's what you recall, and so I believe you're saying now that you absolutely knew that you were arrested on March 13th, 2022. There's no question about your recollection, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I don't have any further questions. I do appreciate your time today.
Let me rephrase that though.
Sure.
I was taken to the jail and spent like 4 hours in there, and then they go, okay, you can go now. I'm like, I can go? Because I thought I was waiting to go to a jail cell or something. I'm like, so I didn't even understand what was being done, and I still don't understand what was being done. And they just released me. I never saw a judge. I never went to jail. I didn't know what even happened. So that's why when I went to the courthouse and said, is there anything on my record? And they said no. I assumed that it wasn't. I don't know how to explain it. I'm not huge on legal issues. So I guess I misinterpreted that question because I assumed that if it wasn't on my record, it wasn't anything to list. I didn't.
I understand that you construe the word record to equate to arrest, but those are two different things.
Okay.
Were you arrested, not wrongfully arrested or rightfully arrested, or was it mistaken identity? The question to me is simple. Were you arrested? It's a yes or no. It's not there's nothing in the question that says, is there anything on your record? Did you seal your record? Are you confused about what's on your record? Did the courthouse make a mistake about what's on the record? It was simply, have you ever been arrested in the last 10 years? And to me, that should elicit a very simple response, at least for the one that occurred in 2022 with your roommate, because that was fresh on your mind, right? Correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Commissioner Marcantonis.
So, Mr. Wu, again, also thank you for being patient with us today. I've also reviewed all the materials that I have. And we understand that it must be very difficult for you to even be standing here in front of us and speaking about this today. I get that personally. But even from the time that you were arrested, there's some lack of sincerity, at least as I read through the materials, about whether the incidents that were described that caused all of these, I was arrested, I wasn't arrested, I was put in jail, I wasn't put. These incidents, though, did occur. Would you
Correct.
agree? So the incidents themselves happened. How the process that followed was clear to anybody is a bit murky, and certainly in your opinion. But if the incidents happen, then you have to own that. You haven't, it hasn't seemed to me as I review the record that you've ever really owned it. There's a lot of, everybody else has made a bit of a mistake. And just me from the materials, as I mentioned, all I have in front of me, it's not me dragging it out of the sky, but there's consequences for every action. And sometimes we just have to face the consequences. But have you owned the fact that you have done some things that probably were inappropriate at those specific times? Your consequences were some kind of arrests, at least detention. If there weren't, I'm not an expert on exactly what constitutes an official arrest. Must you be in handcuffs and, fingerprints does come up quite a bit in the discussion, but you were involved in these situations that were unpleasant. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, thank you for that, at least.
So for the one 10 years ago,
yes,
I was arrested. I'm not saying that, I'm saying it was dismissed, but it was an unpleasant incident and I was arrested. I'm owning up to that. I just had no idea about it because I forgot it 10 years ago. The one that just happened, that one I didn't even understand. If I was arrested, I didn't know how to handle that because I didn't see a judge and I didn't ever have any charges against me, I didn't think. So I didn't know what, I thought it was just, I don't know. Okay. That's my mistake.
So just for clarity of the record here, so you're before us and the basis for the recommendation is related to the failure to report the arrests on your application and not the underlying facts of whatever you didn't get charged with. So just so that you know, and so that the record is clear, we're not deciding an appeal based upon some fight with your alleged roommate / girlfriend, whatever. It's about the reporting, right? So I just want to make sure you're clear on what we're talking about. I want to move down the dais here. Commissioner Krolicki, do you have anything?
Welcome. And I appreciate the conversations my colleagues have had with you already. I think they've established the framework, and I know this seem unfair. We're not here to referee, right or wrong in terms of the incidents with police officers, if that's the term here, it's on the reporting. And I think it's clear you failed to report. It doesn't need to be a record. It's your recollection. So I think the hearing officer, the transcript, it lays it out plainly that you didn't represent yourself appropriately, in your application. No further questions.
I don't have any questions.
All right, well, here's what I would say. It's pretty clear on page 15 of the transcript before the hearing officer, when you talk about when the hearing officer actually asks you on page 14, yeah, so 10/23/2019, that's probably when I got my name changed then, and there's a discussion, and you say, quote, when they took me to jail for 6 hours and they booked me. I think we all know what that means, and I think you knew what that meant. If we look at your temporary custody record from 10 years ago, it's clear you were booked into the Clark County Detention Center and not any other detention center. And perhaps it's because I was in the justice system for many, many years, but I struggle with the concept that anyone could spend any amount of appreciable time at the Clark County Detention Center, the smell of it, the view of it, the experience of it, and ever forget it. So that's for me. At the end of the day, you didn't remember. Unfortunately, I'm not going to question whether that was an accident or on purpose. I'm simply going to say that I'm prepared to vote on a motion if someone has one. I absolutely appreciate you sitting here for 2 hours and 30 minutes to be heard. And I appreciate the respect that you've given us today, addressing your comments. Does someone have a motion?
I'm prepared to move to sustain the Nevada Gaming Control Board's objection to Mr. Wu's registration as a gaming employee.
Any discussion on the motion? There being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there are none opposed. In a year, is it a year? I always ask this question for some reason. From today.
From today?
In a year from today, you can come back.
You can reapply.
I can reapply.
Yes.
You apply for reconsideration, I believe.
Yes, it's a petition for reconsideration under Reg 5.
So it's not with well, this is a gaming commission, I guess. So when I filed for my gaming license the first time, would I do that again, or do I come here?
You would file a motion for reconsideration. So you don't have to, that's all you're going to have to file. And the good news is that the same people that helped you with kind of navigating this procedural process will be the same people you will contact that will help you to navigate that procedural process. I mean, they can't give you legal advice, but they'll tell you, here's how you do it. And they'll give you the paperwork and they'll just call.
So 1 year from today.
1 year from today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Madam Secretary, could you please read in the next agenda item?
You have one regulation agenda item regarding proposed amendments to Nevada Gaming Commission Regulation 22 as noted on the agenda.
Okay. Our senior DAG is appearing via Zoom. Hi, how are you doing today? Again.
Good afternoon, Chair Tagliati, members of the Commission, Madam Secretary, members of the board. For the record, I am John McKellar with the Attorney General's Office, and also thank you for allowing me to appear by video today. Before you today for possible adoption are proposed regulatory changes regarding esports. The Esports Technical Advisory Committee has part of its statutory charge to make recommendations to the board on any guidelines and parameters that may be necessary to ensure the integrity of esports when wagers are placed on such competitions, recommended these regulatory changes to the board on October 24th, 2022. The board considered the ETAC recommendations on January 11th, 2023, and recommended the changes to you with some technical changes and 2 additions. These recommendations are reflected in the draft before you today, dated January 11th, 2023. The overarching intent of the recommended changes is to allow licensed books to accept wagers on esports events in the manner of traditional sporting events. With the recommended changes, the licensed books would decide whether or not to accept wagers on an esports event, and the board would not approve wagering on such events in advance. However, in addition to the heightened due diligence required by the recommended changes, books would also have to follow the safeguards in place for traditional sporting events. Some of these include reporting suspicious transactions under regulations 22.121 and 5.055, prohibiting coaches and participants from placing wagers pursuant to regulation 22.1205, and monitoring potential match fixing for NRS 465.070 purposes. There is one wrinkle to the process for this regulation which deserves mention. NRS 463.830 empowers the board to adopt regulations by itself based on ETAC's recommendations. However, it does not make sense to have standalone regulations regarding wagering on esports outside of all other regulations pertaining to gaming as set out in the Nevada Gaming Commission regulations. As such, what you have before you today are ETAC and board recommended changes to Nevada Gaming Commission regulations. Because the changes proposed are to Nevada Gaming Commission regulations, the changes would follow the normal gaming regulatory process where the commission decides whether to adopt the changes. Turning to the sections of the proposed regulation changes. The changes to regulation 22.1201 make new regulation 22.1202 the exclusive process a book must follow if it desires to accept wagers on esports. Proposed regulation 22.1202 sets out the process a book must follow if it desires to take wagers on esports. Subsection 1 reiterates the statutory definition of esports and that esports are regulated as other events. Subsection 2 defines event operator. Subsection 3 allows books to take wagers on esports outside of the current other event requirements, and similarly to how books accept wagers on traditional sporting events. This is allowed if a book satisfies the due diligence requirements of this subsection. The board's two additions to the ETAC recommended language are found here. Subsection 22.1202 3D2 Big I adds a specific due diligence requirement that a licensee verify an esports event has a code of conduct which includes prohibitions on doping and a program to deter doping. Subsection 22.1202 3D2 Big II adds a specific due diligence requirement that a licensee verify an esports event has a code of conduct which includes prohibitions on wagering on the event by individuals participating in the event and a program to deter circumvention of these prohibitions. I highlight that these two changes originated with the board and were not discussed by ETAC or prior to the board meeting on January 11th. Subsection 4 sets out that books are required to maintain and update their records concerning their performance of the required due diligence. A book would also be required to notify the Gaming Control Board on a quarterly basis of the event operators for esports events on which the book accepted wagers. Subsection 5 authorizes the chair to prohibit books from accepting wagers on events conducted by certain event operators. This would allow the chair to shut down wagering on esports events conducted by a certain event operator if an issue developed with the event operator. This subsection also allows an affected book to request review. Subsection 6 highlights that the chair may place an event operator on section 22.1201's list of sanctioning organizations. If the chair does so, book compliance with the due diligence requirements found in subsections 3 and 4 would not be required. However, as with traditional wagers on sporting events, books would still be required to monitor the integrity of the events on which they take wagers and follow other wagering requirements. That covers the proposed changes as recommended to you by the board. However, I am aware of an issue which will be discussed by individuals within the esports industry today. That the specific due diligence requirement regarding doping introduced when the board considered the issue might prevent wagering on most esports events. I will leave the discussion of this issue to those individuals. The board discussed this issue as part of its properly noticed workshop yesterday, and Member Watkins is available today to answer any questions you may have regarding board history and thoughts on this matter, as she is the only board member who was in attendance at the time this matter was recommended to you for adoption. These changes are before you for your consideration of adoption, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe the members of the commission have been provided and are privy to communications dated March 27th, 2023 and October 4th, 2023 from the Vice President of Government Affairs, Tara Ryan, the Entertainment Software Association, that addresses some of the issues that you raised. Before I hear from our Dr. Watkins, I would appreciate hearing, if you'd like. I mean, we all have it, we've all read it. Quite frankly, I imagine that the doping requirement seems to me to be logistically, while a nice idea, logistically and financially, practically very difficult. And so, and it also wasn't part of the committee, which, you know, I can certainly respect Board Member Katsaros's intent, but then you have to carry it out. And so I am not going to ask you a lot of questions on that. I would like the board to weigh in on their views. It seems to me pretty obvious that that is an very difficult thing to try to undertake, and I don't think I'll be supporting that, but go ahead.
Well, thank you, Chair Tagliati. Candidly, that was an incredibly concise demonstration of all the arguments I was going to make. But so for the record, my name is Alyssa Naveworth. I'm here on behalf of the Entertainment Software Association. I want to start by saying thank you so much to all the members of the Gaming Control Board and the Chief and Deputy Chief for working through this complicated issue with us. Very briefly, you know, we believe the language is currently drafted associated with doping has substantive and procedural concerns. First, we believe that as currently drafted, that there will be the unintended consequence of making most esports competitions functionally ineligible for wagering in Nevada. While there are many integrity safeguards currently in place at sanctioned events, esports competitions are growing and evolving at a phenomenal rate. And there exists a series of complicated questions that are yet settled with regard to esports. Even reasonable experts in doping programs are likely to disagree about what it means to implement an effective program to deter doping. While the video game industry has a vested interest in ensuring integrity in gameplay, the requirement that a sportsbook not accept wagers on esports events unless it can be shown that an effective program to deter doping is in place will have the practical consequence of making more esports tournaments ineligible for wagering in Nevada. Most event operators see anti-doping measures to be exceptionally cost prohibitive and lacking evidence of proven benefit. I'd also like to note two things. Unlike conventional sports, where these sports are being participated in one arena in a particular area, in an esports tournament, the teams are participating worldwide. So logistically, the analogy between a traditional sporting environment and an esport sporting environment is inapplicable. The second is that while there are some publishers and some companies and operators that are working toward, many of which are working towards a doping solution, most of that is done because of the health and safety of the actual participants, since they are younger in age, not because there's any actual proof that doping affects the integrity of the sport. I think that those are two important things to know. And then, of course, as you referenced, Chair Tagliati, we do not believe that this language has been thoroughly vetted thoroughly vetted in general. As you noted, this was proposed after the ETEC recommendations on December 2nd, and therefore was not discussed at ETEC at all. The ETEC was created, as you may be aware, by the legislature to encourage and foster esports in Nevada and ensure that the state begins to regulate the evolving industry with regulations that have been thoroughly debated and discussed by folks that have expertise in the matter. We applaud the state of Nevada for creating the ETEC. We were intimately involved in the creation of the legislation. This language, as you know, was added by a member that is no longer a member of the board. I want to emphasize that the esports industry and the ESA as its representative cares deeply about the health and safety of the esports players and wants to put in place the highest integrity standard safeguards. We believe that by removing the ambiguous language of the proposed regulation in no way dilutes the requirement to ensure effective integrity standards are in place. And we are committed to an ongoing conversation with the ETAC, the Gaming Control Board, and the Gaming Commission about the role of regulating some sort of effective program associated with doping, both for the health and safety of our players and for the integrity of the sport in general. With that, I stand open to questions.
Thank you. Would you mind would you mind addressing the other comments obviously that's the big one. But you also, in your March 27th, 2023 letter had some other points. For example, the compliance loophole point that you raised for 1201, 2C 1 through 7. And then you also had the other issue about approval to use the published IP. I'm not sure that's as significant an issue, but I just thought you brought it up in March, and I don't know if you're raising that now. It wasn't a significant, I don't think it was mentioned in the subsequent letter of October 4th of 23. And I did try to watch all of the workshop, but in case I missed it, was that part of the workshop?
Thank you, Chair. The issue that we are raising today is the doping language, because we believe that that is something that the Commission has jurisdiction over because of the procedural timeline of the addition of the language. The other three issues that we have been worked through, we want to say thank you so much to every member of the GCB and the Chief and Deputy Chief of Enforcement for working with on those issues. All of those have been vetted by the ETAC, and we respect those recommendations to you at this time. We in no way want to stand before the implementation of regulations associated with esports wagering. We just want this one issue clarified, and we have committed to continue to work with GCB and the staff to work on these issues should our concerns materialize to need meaningful regulation in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Commissioner Krolicki.
And if I can, I listened to what you just said, but if I can confirm definitively, other than the doping language, you and your association is comfortable with the regs as before us today, other than the doping issue?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
So unless anybody has any questions, or do you? Okay.
Thank you so much for that concise presentation. You made reference to safeguards that are already in place. Could you elaborate on the safeguards that are already in place so I can better understand what you mean by that?
Associated with the integrity of the game overall, or specific to the doping issue?
Specific to the doping issues.
A number of the, and this is an evolving industry, as you know, many of the publishers and the operators are currently working on health and safety mechanisms. Some of them have more pronounced implemented programs that deal with health coaches or wellness coaches. The Entertainment Software Association has worked internally to work with their members on some sort of cohesive doping solution. And as I said, what they have found is that there are a number of complicated issues associated with it. First, the privacy issues associated with the players themselves. Second of all, the fact that as I often say, people know that while we call this esports, it is not an athletic event in a traditional sense. And therefore, unlike an athletic event in a traditional sense, where there might be performance enhancement drugs that are clearly identified, steroids, et cetera, as to break the integrity of the game. In esports, this is an intellectual event. So some of the pharmaceuticals that folks are concerned about people abusing are also pharmaceuticals that many people take on a natural course of business, Adderall being one example of that.
That require a prescription.
That require a prescription, which is protected information between you and your doctor. So it's a bigger, broader conversation about exactly what you're trying to achieve when you achieve a doping program. So that's not a non-concise way to say that depending on the various operators or publishers, they've implemented formal or informal programs, and the industry as a whole is still continuing the conversation, but not because they believe that there has been any demonstrated impact to the integrity of the actual game and from a wagering perspective, but actually for the health and safety of the players, as many of them are adults, but younger adults in age.
Isn't the nature of these events have people all over the world participating from different countries outside the United States?
Internationally, there can be teams in Milan, there'll be teams in Philadelphia, there can be teams throughout Asia, as well as a team only located in Las Vegas.
Right. So unlike the physical competitions that we're talking about with other sports, this is it thrives on the fact that you are virtual and you can participate from anywhere in the world.
That's correct.
And you don't have to be in Las Vegas.
No.
Okay, so that's part of it, like the logistical.
Logistically, it's impossible. How could you across the line, the legal lines between countries or states regarding privacy and drug issues? I mean, logistically, it's very, very difficult to implement what would be an effective doping program, even if we could understand what that actually means. The other
I have
thing
a
I would
question
say is,
though. Can I interrupt you? So, and I apologize for my lack of knowledge in this area, but are there other states that are more advanced than we are as far as trying to address these issues, that have something in place that we don't? And if so, does that involve doping, anti-doping type requirements, or are we I'd like to think, I hope we're on the forefront of it, but I don't know. I have no idea.
I believe that we are on the forefront of it as it relates to this type of regulation, especially specific to within the Nevada regulatory framework. But I would turn to Mr. McKellar to ask him if he's aware of other jurisdictions who have this in place, the doping standards.
I am not aware of any other jurisdictions that do this for esports, but it's not something I've specifically inquired into.
I mean, even the fact that we're having a conversation about this, we're probably the first having a conversation about this. And while it's my personal sentiment that passing it is premature, it's still, we have no limitations on the conversation we can have about it, which has been brought up by Ms. Nave repeatedly. I just wanted to point that out. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no interruption at all. Could you provide me with any specificity? The term doping is a very broad term, so I don't know the age range of these players, and I'm not sure. You mentioned one specific drug, but could you give me any specific examples of the top 3 drugs that are of concern that are being used or abused by these players, and what these drugs are doing in terms of, is it enhancing their agility? Is it helping them stay awake longer? What's the duration of these events? I don't understand. The term doping is very broad, and I'm just trying to understand what I'm looking at specifically.
I will have to go back to the ESA to provide that information to you and the members of the commission. That is partially why we believe that the regulation is incredibly vague, because we don't actually know what that was meant to attract to. Also, it's so I will go back to our client and get that information for you.
You referenced one specific drug. Is it Adderall?
So Adderall is discussed often because, in esports. They are playing video games. It's an intellectual game. So folks, will say, Adderall is often prescribed to create, focus, and whether or not Adderall, and it is abused, not just in esports, but, in college admissions as well, and all the other things. Is Adderall something that we should be talking about, especially when that there are many folks that are on this medication because they need that medication and they're being supervised by a doctor for that medication. So it's an example of a pharmaceutical that has a lot of privacy and HIPAA concerns associated with it that the association is trying to figure out how to navigate correctly. There was a conversation about caffeine and the effect of caffeine yesterday. But there's also, that's why, from the ESA's perspective that they have consistently told me, and I've met with many of the companies, is that they're really more concerned from a health and welfare perspective of their teams and their players about how they can make sure that they aren't abusing, common substances that enhance your ability to focus or game longer in that way.
So for
The top
endurance,
3 drugs, I don't know. And I don't even know if they've commissioned a specific study about that, but I can certainly find that information and get that to every member of the commission.
is there any data that you've received or that anybody's received that indicates the percentage of these players that are using enhancement drugs that fall within the rubric of doping?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And what is the age range of these players?
I know that they're a minimum of they're adults, so they are 18 years, but they can extend much older.
I was just curious if there's any empirical data about the age group or the groups, and to the extent we're talking about drugs that aren't prescribed by doctors, I'm curious what those drugs could be, because then you have different responsibilities that doctors are involved in terms of the duty to a patient. And, if you prescribe something that's not required, I mean, that's a whole separate issue. I'm just trying to get my hands around the scope of the term doping, what the concerns are, how many people are allegedly using it, what the age group is, and how anybody from our side can regulate, enforce, check. I don't understand practically how that could possibly happen.
Well, these are all the questions that we believe are appropriately had at the level of the ETAC, which is, a board that was comprised of members that are interested on behalf of players, on behalf of publishers, on behalf of operators. So industry representatives that truly understand the intricacies of that. And we think that that is that kind of thorough conversation that we would be happy and proud to participate in as the ESA. I will say that, in other sports contexts, and this was also raised at the workshop yesterday, there are not statutory or regulatory requirements associated with that because they are defer to whether or not it's the National Football League or similarly situated regulatory entities that self-regulate inside those sports areas. But
so when you say self-regulate, and I go back to the very first question I asked you, I hear safeguards in place. I don't hear which safeguards are actually in place and being implemented. Maybe I missed it, but could you reiterate that for me or specify? Because I don't understand which safeguards are in place that have been promulgated and are being carried through.
Some of the companies have health and safety programs. Some of them are quite robust. Others do not have safety programs. They all are internally implemented. There is a wide variety of conversations going on as to exactly what they can do in light of privacy and HIPAA issues. And that is true. All those health and safety initiatives that the various companies are producing are internally driven, whether or not that is by Activision or another company. With regard to a national perspective, there is not a consensus. Seems to be a consensus so far that there is not a demonstrable impact on the integrity of the game, which would be the specific concern associated with wagering, but that the folks are more interested from a health and safety perspective.
And could you give me just one example? When you talk about a health and safety program, what does that look like? I don't understand specifically.
I will have to have those folks outline that program and also follow up with you on this.
And do the players have to sign something to pledge that they're not that they're not doping before they're admitted? I don't understand what the procedure is in terms of.
Differs operator to operator.
Got it. So that is something that is in place depending on the operator?
I can't speak for all operators. I represent the association, so I would have to do a consensus of the association.
Do you know if any operators have like a pledge that a player signs before he or she participates?
I believe 1 to 2 of them do.
You know,
I can't speak specifically to them.
Okay. I'm just trying to better understand, and I appreciate your willingness to get additional information so that I can make a better decision.
I will say logistically, because of the fact that these tournaments are worldwide, and because there's no clear definition of what it means to be doping or the impact of it or what an effective program would be, that if this regulation were to go in effect, wagering in Nevada would be logistically virtually impossible for almost all operators.
It's over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about it being cost prohibitive, I don't know who could participate with the mandatory doping program. I'm sure it'd be a very, very, very short list. And I don't think that would create any competition because it'd be a short list. So I just, when you say what's the cost, I don't know what that data is. I still don't understand, but it sounds like it would be expensive and hard to enforce. So there's so many logistical issues, but notwithstanding that, that doesn't mean that specific safeguards shouldn't be in place or that we shouldn't require something with some detail and specificity. I just haven't heard yet what that is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marcantonis, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, if I may, and thank you for explaining all of this and yesterday and today. But so really it's not physical performance, as we all know, it's all to do with attention performance, if anything was going to be enhanced. And is it true that in some of these cases, and just for my own clarity, excuse me, as I've talked to younger folks who may participate in some of these things, so they form teams, the teams play against each other. Sometimes these teams all live together in the same house or apartment.
Yep.
They become like a symbiotic, I don't know what you would call it. And yeah, going back to Commissioner Ogana-Brown's comments, to enforce, I imagine if we were trying to figure out if a whole team that's all 4 bodies living in some apartment in some far-fetched country, how we would ever do that. So it goes back to the key word, which is integrity. And as I went through all of these thoughts, I was thinking about every other game that we licensed, that we have, there's rules. And we know, we go back to those words, the bad actors. We know there's ways to keep them out. There's ways to know who they are. And this, although it'd be very exciting, and you're right, you want to be in the forefront and it's going to bring them all to the front. But how do you have code of conducts or anything like that? Any kind of preliminary regs that any of us have not seen yet? Maybe that would help us. And I agree also with what my fellow commissioner said, that maybe if people do have some health and safety protocols, I think that would help us too. If we could understand the whole picture, just throwing that out there for whatever it's worth.
Again, operator, publisher to publisher, there are differences in the various teams, just much like I would imagine that there are different code of conducts between the different NFL teams. That is, again, a self-regulated concept. Specific to, I will say, from my understanding, it's not just 4 dudes living in an apartment. These are actual sponsor teams. They have medical care. They have team managers. They're provided with nutritional support.
Sponsors.
They're sponsored by major companies worldwide. It is not a small nascent,
right?
Folks in a backyard, but this is like a large, big money business. And so they are taken care of, and how they're taken care of is dependent on the various sponsor of the team and the company that's overseeing the team. Just like it's different how you take care of a different NASCAR team or a different Formula One team or a different NFL team. And none of those candidly have to do, with whether or not the game integrity is being compromised is something that the publisher is of its utmost priority, because candidly, the productivity of the game is directly linked to the integrity of the game. If the game does not have integrity, no one wants to play the game, and therefore it is not profitable. And so it's something that they are focused on from a wagering perspective. I can certainly follow up and give you a sampling of how various teams are operated and what the code of conducts are for those teams as well.
What publishers, how many are there? Sorry to interrupt you there. Judge, how many roughly thrown at publishers would there be or are there in existence? The
There-
game, the people who hold or can set up these tournaments, do you think they're 20, 30, 100 worldwide? Is it 200? I mean, I have no idea. And not necessarily if you
Well,
don't know.
there are hundreds, if not
Hun-
thousands,
hundreds.
of game publishers. Those are folks
If
that
not
publish the game.
thousands.
Thousands.
If not close to a million. Those are the games. And then there are tournament organizers of the games. And then there are folks that sponsor teams as well. It's an entire industry.
Right. But those individuals, and I'm getting too granular, so I promise I'm going to stop. But those individuals, these publishers and so on, they could affect the outcome of games since they're publishing the game and they're putting in the software that affects what's going to happen in that tournament. No, okay, throwing it out there. I don't know.
What makes an esports tournament
Right.
verifiable and something that you could wager on,
Okay.
also what gives it the integrity of it is that they do not they cannot impact through their intellectual property, the IP of the game, the outcome of the game.
Okay.
That is why people compete in it. I would be happy to bring the Entertainment Software Association for an informational.
What I would ask is that somebody from the board who's doing this full time, all day, every day, not esports, but just everything. Dr. Watkins, could you weigh in on some of these issues? Because we're waxing, about a lot of different things, and I'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. So first, I'd just like to provide a little bit of context in how I perceive this situation, in which I perceive this situation to arise. So as regulators, I think one of our statutory policies underlying our decisions is to ensure the continued growth and success of gaming. Esports has become an important part of gaming. Statutory policy also requires that we ensure public confidence through strict regulation. In full consideration of these policies, the recommended regulations attempt to treat esports more similar to traditional sports, where the decision on whether to accept wagers placed on esports events is left to the licensee after conducting due diligence. This, we think, will provide licensees with the necessary flexibility to increase wagers on esports. Event-specific due diligence will continue to be performed by the licensee, but an application and approval by the board will no longer be required. It has been brought to my attention that the recommendation passed by the board requiring an effective program to deter doping presents ambiguity. It has been interpreted by some to mean that drug testing must be implemented. We don't currently require, we don't currently have this requirement for traditional sports. And I think Chief Torgerson is here in the back, and DC Lopez, who could probably speak further to the traditional sports integrity requirements. But we expect licensees to do their due diligence in ensuring that integrity standards are in place for the competitions that they take wagers on. That's the goal here with esports. And there are also other methods of discouraging drug use, such as, and I would ask Ms. Nave, correct, if she is aware of this as well, but player education, is that one of the ways that, and this kind of speaks to what Commissioner Brown was indicating earlier, is that, she'd like to see other safeguards in place. But a lot of these operators or teams have player education. Some do have codes of conduct that players must sign, deterrence, fines through finding potential fines to players and things of that sort.
That is correct.
Okay. So there are methods to deter doping in place. And although they're not the same from operator to operator, is my understanding, or event operator to event operator, there are those safeguards in place, integrity safeguards to include deterrence, deterring doping. But because the language that about doping, an effective program to deter doping, was not fully vetted by the ETAG, if the commission feels compelled to keep it, my hope is that the commission will pass the proposed language today without the language and consider adding it at a later date. I do think that we need something in place, and these amendments have been long time coming. It's my belief that they would help promote an increase of volume of wagers, and that they're in line with our policy goal of supporting the growth and success of gaming. And I don't think we need to, within our regulations, specify a requirement for drug testing program as it may be interpreted, as I believe we have satisfied that policy mandate through strict regulation, for strict regulation, with the following language as proposed by the ESC, which requires the licensee to ensure that the event operator has effective integrity standards in place, including without limitation a code of conduct, which encompasses prohibitions on wagering by or on behalf of a participant, owner, coach, or staff of a participant or team, and an effective program to deter circumvention of these prohibitions.
Okay. Thank you for that. So what I'm hearing, just to recap, make sure I understand, is that you're hoping the commission will pass and approve the changes to the reg, with the exception of the doping language, which you would recommend to the commission. We instead incorporate the effective integrity standard language in its place, knowing that this is a continuing conversation. It's not going away. It's not like we want to ignore it. It's not like we're not concerned about the health, welfare, and safety of the players, because we are, but we all recognize that there's, legal, logistical, and practical problems with it. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And this is an emerging industry that, we will continue to watch grow and hopefully support the growth while continuing to have strict regulation. I think this policy, similar to the policies or the regulations we have in comparison to traditional sports betting, will allow us to accomplish both of those policy goals.
Thank you. Commissioner Krolicki, you wanted to say something?
Yes, but I think they've been addressed. And Ms. Nave, what you've just heard, do you believe ESA is comfortable with that?
ESA's, you mean with specific, Commissioner, to the language?
Yes.
So our preference would be to return to the original language pre the GCB hearing. So this is the language that would end with a period behind place at subsection 2, which says that you have effective integrity standards in place.
Can you hold on one second? Stop. So we can just.
So would that language also remove Roman numeral 2? Is that what you're saying?
That's our preference.
Oh, okay. Okay. I misunderstood. I thought you were only asking to remove
Roman numeral 1.
That relates to doping, because Roman numeral 2 relates to wagering by. Sorry.
They would be fine. I think that they would be fine with Roman numeral 2.
Okay.
So what we're talking about is, are we talking about the same thing? Because you had a very specific language that you were suggesting, which if there was a motion made, one of us could incorporate by reference, versus you're saying just redact something. Is that what you're saying, Ms. Nave?
I think as I understood it, Ms. Nave was saying, she was asked her preference, and the preference of the organization would be to delete everything after place. So just put a period after the.
I see the confusion, and the confusion is candidly on behalf of the association. In March 27th letter, the original language that they requested was the deletion of Roman numeral 1, but the keeping of Roman numeral 2. Most recently, we've been asked, we thought it was cleaner to return to the original language, which was the language that before the amendment in January, which would have just been have effective integrity standards in place, period. And I think candidly, both probably achieved what they are trying to achieve in general. And it's what the member Watkins and the members of the GCB are most comfortable with.
And I would agree with that, and I will ask our DAG, Mr. McKellar, to weigh in as well, because it is also my understanding that Roman numeral 2 that relates to wagering by participants and others is covered in another area. And so this is more so belt and suspenders by bringing it here specific to the subsection. So Mr. McKellar, would you like to weigh in on that, or I will defer to the chair?
Thank you, Member Watkins. Yes, there is a current requirement in Regulation 22.1205 that requires licensees to prevent wagering by participants and events and sporting events and that sort of thing for the event in which they're participating. So this would just require a licensee to do due diligence and make sure that the event operator has a policy in place to prevent this, but with or without it, 22.1205 requires the licensee to prevent that.
So do you have a?
What is, because when this came up, I asked that you speak to the board because the makeup has changed. And I just wanted to make sure, because I give a lot of weight to, you folks, you do this all day, every day. What is your preference what would you recommend when you're considering what Ms. Nave is saying, what all the concerns are up here, and what you know?
I have spoken to Mr. McKellar about this issue previously, and I am okay moving forward without the additional belt and suspenders as it relates to wagering by participants and others.
Okay, so so if someone were going to make a motion consistent with what you've discussed here, it would be to approve the changes with the exception of, can you state it for the record, just so that
I think we would just put a period
we would just put a period
after the place. We have to put a period after the place and delete.
And not to parse too much, but I believe it would be a semicolon since it's in the middle of
Okay, I said it wrong.
My preference is to delete Roman numeral 1 and to keep Roman numeral 2 in place. I don't know if it's exactly the identical language that is set forth in 22.1205, but notwithstanding that, I like that there's specificity in case some people don't cross-reference and aren't familiar. But I do like to have it in place, excluding subsection 1, Roman numeral 1, relating to prohibitions on doping by participants and an effective program to deter doping. So that's my personal comfort level in terms of keeping that language in, just because it doesn't appear to be reprehensible to anyone here. And that was what I thought was the initial recommendation by Dr. Watkins. And I think clarity on a subject like this that is so new is preferred by me. So that's my comfort level. D1 through subsection Roman numeral 2, excluding Roman numeral 1.
Does anybody else have any questions, comments, or concerns for anybody involved in this discussion before somebody starts talking about making a motion?
Just seems cleaner to me to return to the original language with a semicolon after place. If we want the specificity in sub 2, I mean, can't that be incorporated into section 5, which is right below it? I don't see, it's not really a difficult cross-referencing.
You gotta love lawyers.
I want the language, a code of conduct which encompasses Roman numeral 2 to be included somewhere. The placement is irrelevant to me. I just wanted that to be expressly included in a place where you feel it's appropriate.
Do we have any problems with the noticing of this item? If there's any movement changing around or otherwise?
I just thought it would create less of a headache if we didn't move it to a whole different part because it's already there. And I thought deletion would be easier than total deletion and then inclusion in another section. But I have no issues with my fellow commissioners' proposal as long as the language appears somewhere.
And just to be clear, I don't believe the language is necessary. I was just suggesting that my preference would still be to end it at place and let the specifics be worked out, as this industry is evolving. I mean, we can always add to it if we feel it's necessary, but that was the language that was proposed initially by the ETAC, who has spent a lot more time on this than we do. And I just don't see that it's a significant add-on. So my preference would be to omit it omit it altogether.
Section 2,
1 and
1
2.
and 2. Section 2, Roman numeral 1 and Roman numeral 2. And
I agree with that, and then we can subsequently add to it. I mean, regs are serious. Once on, it's hard to take off. We've done that exercise already this year, as the state of Nevada has. So I would support that, and then let ETAC and others work with, you all and others, and certainly
So would I.
control board to come back at some point when there's comfortable language or there isn't, to move forward with the other items.
okay, so I think we know what the issues are. It would seem to me it's appropriate for someone to make a motion, and then we can have some decisions about whether the commission desires to move forward with the regulations without section 2, Roman numeral 1, or whether they choose to move forward without section 2, Roman numeral 1 and 2. I think we just have to make a decision.
Madam Chair, I'd be prepared to make a motion for adoption of the proposed amendments to Regulation 22.1201, draft dated January 11th, 2023, with the following change. On page 2, well, in subsection, what is it, 2? 2?
Section 3D2.
3D. Yeah, I'm sorry, in subsection, in section 3, subsection 2. D2, adding a semicolon after place and deleting the language that follows it, including Roman numeral 1 and 2.
Okay, discussion on the motion. All right, there being no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
Only because of that specific language.
All right.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
For the record, I believe you need to reference 22.1202 as well.
22.1202.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. And I would amend my motion accordingly. I stopped reading up to here.
Okay. Could you just do the motion?
Yes.
From the beginning.
I move for adoption of the proposed amendments to regulations 22.1201 and 22.1202 as proposed in the draft dated January 11, 2023, with the change to section 3D2 as follows, placing a semicolon after the word place and deleting the language that follows it, including Roman numerals 1 and 2.
So can I ask the senior DAG, is that a proper motion based upon everything you've heard us discuss in the phrasing of the motion?
I think that makes it clear. Subsection D2 would stop after in place, and then it would continue on with subsection D3.
Correct.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? On the motion? There being no discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Thank you very much for your
It's an honor.
appearance today. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Chair Hendrick.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you to the board and to you, Doctor. Thank you. We appreciate it. All right. At this time, next on our agenda are the administrative reports. Chair Hendrick.
Thank you, Chair Tagliati. We are anticipating a one-day board meeting on November 1st. Right now, we're expecting 15 non-restricted items to be on the board's 9 a.m. calendar, and we're expecting 12 restricted items on the board's 1:30 calendar. So we're going to hopefully leave time for lunch next month.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything from our Attorney General today?
Nothing today, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, if we could close with our last agenda item, public comments.
This item is placed on the agenda to give the public an opportunity to comment on gaming-related matters.
I will first go to Carson City, where it doesn't look like there is anyone located there. Anyone wishing to make any public comment in Carson City? There being no one in Carson City, anyone here in Las Vegas? There being no one here to make.
Chair,
Oh,
if you don't mind, just real quick, I just want to thank the commission for your attention to the details of the esports regulations and your questions and commentary. This has been a long process and something that Mr. McKellar, I don't know if he's still on or not, but has worked really hard in the AG's office in general to help get through, and the board's worked really hard on this, and our esports technical advisory committee as well. Mr. Shore was just here, but he just left, and so I appreciate your time and commitment to this, and I think it's very important to our industry.
Well, obviously, we thank you for all of your work. We did the easy part, like a 15-minute discussion. So thank you, and to Mr. Shore and to our senior DAG. Okay, so I believe that concludes the Nevada Gaming Commission meeting for the month of October. We are adjourned. Thank you.